Good morning. We've got a new British Formula One champion, Lando Norris, who won the World Drivers' Championship at just 26 years old.
He came third in the Desert Decider, as it's been called, in Abu Dhabi yesterday, which was enough to allow him to claim the World Championship. Shimon has the story for us.
It's lights out and away we go. Verstappen comes right over to cover Lando Norris. Leaves a gap for Piastri if he wants it.
After 24 gruelling Grand Prix races, his relentless pursuit has finally paid off.
Papaya rules in 2025. Lando Norris crosses the line.
The British McLaren driver has at last been crowned Formula One World Champion.
I love you, Mum. I love you, Dad. Thanks for everything. I'm not crying.
It was a spectacular showdown against stiff competition, with four-time world champion Max Verstappen hot on his heels and teammate Oscar Piastri close behind.
I now know what Max feels like a little bit, and I want to congratulate Max and Oscar, my two biggest competitors the whole season. It's been a pleasure to race against both of them.
Surrounded by friends and family in Abu Dhabi, the 26-year-old has become the 35th Formula One world champion.
And just look at the joy. That's what it means to become a world champion.
Lando, amazing! I'm so happy for him.
It's been really nervy. But what a way to finish.
Great race, great result. It's the whole season's work.
Yeah,
and we can relax for a off-season and go again next.
I don't even know what to say.
For 2025, Lando Norris slams down the champagne bottle and stands on the podium as world champion.
His true talent and hard work helped to claim his maiden title and also made his fans proud, carrying the Union flag to the very top of Formula One. Shimon Freeman-Powell, Sky News.
Astonishing victory there. You were watching, right?
I was watching. It was fantastic. And I don't watch all of the Formula One, but obviously this one had so much jeopardy in it. It was really well set up. The race itself kind of went to plan. But yeah, the aftermath was pretty awesome. And he came across really well. We're going to talk about it more with Jackie later in the hour.
Now, Volodymyr Zelenskyy is heading to Downing Street once again. He's meeting Sir Keir Starmer to try and find some way forward on an end to the Ukraine war.
Well, the French President Emmanuel Macron and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz will also be there. And the pressure is on for Europe to try and find a peace deal that's going to be accepted by both sides.
So the four leaders are expected to discuss what those next steps could look like if a deal is stuck with Russia. I have to say that, of course, it's proved extremely difficult to find something that both Ukraine and Russia could go for. Last night, the US President Trump, whose team spearheading negotiations, was asked about the discussions.
We've been speaking to President Putin, and we've been speaking to Ukrainian leaders, including Zelenskyy, President Zelenskyy. And I have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed that President Zelenskyy hasn't yet read the proposal. That was as of a few hours ago. His people love it, but he hasn't. Russia's fine with it. Russia, I guess, would rather have the whole country when you think of it. But Russia is, I believe, fine with it, but I'm not sure that Zelensky's fine with it. His people love it, but he hasn't read it.
Meanwhile, President Trump's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., spoke to our world presenter Yalda Hakim at a conference in Doha. She asked about the peace deal plan and the White House's priorities.
There's probably well over 200,000 Americans that I spoke to directly. And I'd be in a room like this and I'd ask, is Russia-Ukraine a top 3 issue for anyone in the room? Nothing.
But is your hunch that President Trump is going to walk away?
I think he may. What's good about my father and what's unique about my father is you don't know what he's going to do. The fact that he's not predictable, he's not following the playbook of every clown who's, again, been a bureaucrat for decades, you don't know.
I think that statement we've had from Donald Trump, that the response he gave there says it all, really, when he said, look, Russia is OK with this. Russia's happy with this. And the problem, I guess, you have that if Russia is happy with this, it effectively means Ukraine giving up territory, including potentially territory that they already own at the minute. And that is so difficult to get past.
Well, the comments as well he made towards Zelenskyy, I mean, kind of clearly designed to undermine him at a time when Zelenskyy is facing a lot of corruption questions back home. To say his people like it, but he hasn't read it, imagine someone doing the same to President Trump, or someone saying, oh, no, we understand Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner really like the proposal, but Prime Minister Starmer hasn't read it. I mean, it's really undermining that individual. Of course, he meets with 3 leaders today, Macron, Starmer and Merz in Downing Street, who do kind of support him and want to be there for him, but do they matter relative to President Trump?
Well, the pressure's on for that meeting. And now Reform UK has denied claims of Nigel Farage breaking electoral law.
It follows claims reported over the weekend that Mr Farage falsified election expenses. Rob's here to break down all of the details of this, Rob, and this relates to spending in his constituency ahead of last year's election.
Yeah, ahead of last year's general election. The accusation is basically that spending that should have been categorised and declared as local spending, so stuff that sort of had Nigel Farage's name and face on, was wrongly filed as national spending under the sort of banner of entire party campaigning. These accusations are in the Daily Telegraph. They're being made by a former Reform UK councillor from Essex, from Nigel Farage's constituency in Clacton, essentially, who basically says that they failed to declare things like leaflets, banners, utility bills, the refurbishment of a bar in the Clacton campaigning office. And he's also raised concerns about an armoured Land Rover that he says was used for a campaigning event, but doesn't appear to have been declared anywhere. So he's reported, he says, to the Metropolitan Police that it could be a breach of electoral law. Reform has denied it. They've issued a statement in which they've said these inaccurate claims come from a disgruntled former councillor. The party denies breaking electoral law. We look forward to clearing our name. I mean, I guess anyone can report anyone to the police, really, and it's not necessarily the important thing, I guess, is if they start an investigation. We understand that Nigel Farage hasn't been told that any investigation has been started as yet. I guess if that happens, the questions get more pointed, but really another indication of how, when you're leading this high in the polls, I think, when things are looking like, when the attention is on you, the scrutiny is on you as well, and more things like this come up.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? The kind of increased scrutiny that comes with the increased profile. If someone's looking like they could even be the next Prime Minister, then it starts to ramp up.
Yeah, and how he responds. I mean, we've only got this statement so far, but the sort of angry responses we had last week in those press conferences to some of those claims around racist language at school was interesting because, he was lashing out. And I think sometimes how you respond to these things matters almost as much as what the actual accusations are.
Thanks very much.
Now, 3 women have spoken out about their traumatic birth experiences at NHS hospital trusts. One told Sky News they were made to feel expendable. Another, like she didn't matter. A pattern of women's voices being ignored and safety concerns overlooked been uncovered in independent reviews across England. And now maternity care is increasingly under the microscope with a nationwide investigation into failings at 14 trusts.
Look, just taking a step back, this is one of those things that I personally feel is a national scandal. We've had multiple reports talking about failures, across maternity units in the UK. Now 3 women have sat down with Sky News and look, they're determined to be heard. I should say that some viewers may find what they have to say distressing.
It felt like it was like something's wrong with my left arm. Like I feel like in my chest, I'm like something's wrong. I'm like, oh, I think I'm having a heart attack or something. And I thought, oh no, something's not right. I'm gonna die if they don't listen to me. And of course, no one's listening to me at that point. So I was basically dying, and they hadn't realized how much blood I had lost.
Well, you can watch the full piece online by scanning the QR code on the screen right now. But I think the thing is, you've got these 3 women talking about their own individual stories. Look, if you talk to any woman, I'll be honest, who's given birth, in the UK over the last few years, I think they will have a story. It may not be a story on the same level as the one that you've just heard that woman very bravely talking about, but you will hear a story. And it's reflected in the stats as well. So if you look at, for example, a recent Care Quality Commission review of maternity services in England, they found that 47% of maternity units were deemed unsafe. I mean, unsafe.
47%?
Yeah.
I mean, it's mad. 58% of women who have a negative birth experience said they did not feel listened to during delivery. Another stunning, terrifying statistic.
I think it's the listening to thing that is such a big deal here as well, and I think that's why you do get into a situation where you see, in particular, women who aren't white as well, being more likely to die during childbirth, more likely to have their babies die during childbirth, and again, it's this not being listened to, not being taken seriously. And I have to say, if, any other part of our NHS where 47% of units were deemed to be unsafe, you'd think that something would be done about that pretty quickly, and yet it's something that we almost kind of accept.
We do have a statement from the Department of Health and Social Care. They say too many women and families have been devastated by serious failings in NHS maternity and neonatal care. We're determined to deliver lasting change and ensure all families receive safe, high-quality maternity care. They say they've commissioned a national independent investigation. They're setting up a task force to root out systemic failures, and this is a story we're going to continue to cover throughout the day, and as we mentioned as well, well worth checking out the full Sky News report with the powerful testimony of some people that have come forward.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've been talking about the number of women who've been impacted with that, and men as well, I should say as well, because I know that it can be extremely traumatic for dads as well, feeling helpless, feeling part of a system if it's not going the way that you hope it to. So a reminder, if you have been affected by this story, you can contact the Samaritans at any time on 116 123 or email joe@samaritans.org.
Right, next, we've got a new episode of the New Look Hotspots series this time. Our chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsey's in the West Bank, giving you a behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to report from there.
3 minutes, you need to go from here. Okay. Unless you want to be arrested, okay?
But why?
Just, this is the order.
You took the guy name and title or what? What is doing? Film it.
Thank you.
Well.
Well, Hotspots, as we spoke with Alex last week, is this new behind-the-scenes amazing series on YouTube of the work that Alex and Stuart get up to. This episode now, as you can see there from that pretty extraordinary clip, is focusing on Stuart in the West Bank. If you scan the QR code that's coming back to your screen, if you didn't manage to catch it the first time, you can watch it. But it's on the dedicated Hotspots YouTube channel now.
Now, 5 people have been taken to hospital after being sprayed with what police have described as a form of pepper spray at Heathrow Airport. One man has been arrested on suspicion of assault, and police say they are also still searching for other suspects. Here's our correspondent, Emma Birchley.
Confusion about exactly what they were facing. Armed police respond to an unfolding threat, weaving between cars caught up in the emergency response in a multi-storey car park at Heathrow's Terminal 3. The first 999 calls came shortly after 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, and it quickly became clear that some kind of substance had been used in the assault involving a group of men, leaving multiple people injured.
I observed 3 young men, all dressed in black, with their heads covered, obscured, and they seemed a little sketchy. I don't know how else to describe it. And then they bolted and they went through a side door and up some stairs. And at that point, people started coughing, one at a time at first. And then suddenly I sort of looked around and everyone in the room was coughing, including me. There was a burning in my throat. And it was one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced. For a few moments there, when the police were saying, well, we don't know what's going on, there's been an attack, and the police are running. As you saw in my video, they're handing each other their guns, they're gearing up. there are a few moments where you think, I'm not in control of the immediate future. I don't know where this is going to go. And that is something that I experienced this morning. It was absolutely terrifying, and I 100% believe that I was in a terrorist attack for a few moments there.
Police later said it appeared 4 men had targeted a woman in a car park lift, stealing her suitcase. It's thought they were all known to one another. And it was those in the lift and surrounding area who needed to be treated. Within 9 minutes of the incident being reported, a 31-year-old man was handcuffed and taken into custody. The police say a form of pepper spray was used in the assault, and around half an hour after London Ambulance Service was first alerted, they declared a significant incident, caring for 21 patients, 5 of whom needed to be taken to hospital for further treatment. There was initial concern that it could be terror-related, as the entire area ground to a halt, with roads gridlocked and public transport suspended. Passengers queuing at the station to escape the overcrowded airport. But in a statement, Commander Peter Stevens said, "We are not treating this incident as terrorism. I understand the public's concerns and would like to thank those in the area for their cooperation this morning." It was all over in a few hours, but the large-scale response was no surprise at the UK's busiest airport. There'll be relief that it appears to be an isolated, if terrifying, incident for those caught up in it all. And none of the casualties are thought to have life-threatening injuries. But now the focus for police is tracking down the suspects who managed to escape. Emma Birchley, Sky News, Heathrow.
Now, it's a statement of the obvious, but AI is changing absolutely everything. And honestly, we are not talking about it enough. One of the areas that it is about to completely transform is the jobs market, and that's going to have a massive impact on young people now, young people of the future. And there are some huge questions to be grappled with about the kind of jobs we're going to need people to do in the future. And frankly, the kind of jobs that people are not going to be needed to do as well. So some really big questions there. I'm delighted to say that to discuss that and a bit more as well, of course, is the Government Skills Minister. That is Jackie Smith. Great to have you with us today. So you're announcing more apprenticeships for young people. What's the idea?
So what we've seen over the last 10 years, shockingly, is a 40% fall-off in the numbers of young people starting apprenticeships. At the same time, we've got nearly 1 million young people who are neither earning nor learning. So what we're announcing today is, with an additional £725 million from the budget, increased opportunities for young people to have those apprenticeships, which can be the start of a skilled career that's really going to take them where they want to get to in their jobs, by removing the costs for small and medium-sized businesses of investing in that training, and by supporting particularly mayors at a local level to bring together the young people who want an apprenticeship with the employers who want to be able to offer them that chance.
I started off talking about AI, because it feels to me, honestly, like, you know, we're kind of getting to the stage where we shouldn't even waste our time talking about anything that isn't AI, because it is going to change so much. And it does feel that, you know, we're not as prepared for it as we could be, which isn't a criticism, it's just a reality of where we are. AI is going to transform the jobs market. In your role, you must be talking to people all the time about what that's going to look like. What do you think the impact is going to be?
I think you're right. You know, AI will change the way, is changing the way that we work. So in that case, the role of government, the role of the DWP, is to support people through that change. There are going to be lots of opportunities as well from that. So one of the things we're announcing today, for example, is a new level 4 apprenticeship in AI. We're also introducing from next year new short courses that employers can use their apprenticeship levy to fund, including in AI, so that people can be upskilled.
I think obviously the AI thing is, you know, is welcome, it's fine, but what I'm talking about here is a complete reconfiguration of the jobs market, and it's kind of like the thinking has to match the level of change we're going to see. Like when I was at school, you know, we're all told that coding, accountancy, these are all very, very smart career choices that would lead to a successful career. It feels like that's just not the case anymore. Like what kind of jobs are going to be safe from AI? Are we talking about, you know, hospitality, what are we talking about?
Well, I think they're going to carry on being in jobs in all areas. They're probably going to be being...
Are they really?
Well,
is that genuinely?
I think...
Because I don't think that's true.
What's interesting, of course, is that...
There's not going to be jobs in all areas, are there?
Loads
of them are going to be done by AI.
Yeah, and one of the things that AI also does, of course, if it improves productivity, is that it opens up opportunities in other areas as well. Now, you're right, there are always going to need to be jobs where person-to-person contact is what is most important. And those are opportunities for young people in retail, in hospitality, for example, where we'll be opening up more foundation apprenticeships for young people in those areas.
Do we think then that with AI, do we think then, you're the skills minister, you know more about this than me, do we think with AI, actually those kind of jobs where you do need a person-to-person contact, whether it is, hospitality or whatever, teaching, are actually going to end up paying more and being more stable than some of the old jobs that we thought were the no-brainers of the past?
Well, this is a change. You're absolutely right in the way in which we think about work. And to be honest, we're not completely clear yet how that is going to impact on jobs, which is why it puts a premium on the sorts of skills that you can gain early on in your life, but also for all of us, the need to upskill throughout your life as well, which is why...
Upskill in what, though?
Well, for example, in how you use AI in the workplace. And that's why we're introducing short courses so that employers can have essentially government funding to support their staff to be able to get upskilled in AI. It's why we're changing the school curriculum as well.
It feels a bit kind of small fry, I guess. I mean, I'm not asking if this is Labour policy, right, because it's not, but are we going to be talking about things like universal basic income in the future, where people are paid a flat rate so that they can actually live? Because of this transformation...
You're right, it isn't Labour policy, Sophie, but, I mean, yes, it will change the workplace, but there will still be a premium for people who have got employability skills.
Yeah, but what are these? This is the whole point. What are the employability?
Well, you'll still be needing to work with other people. You'll still be needing to understand what the latest technology is. You'll still be needing to understand how AI is changing the way that you're working. In the public sector, we're seeing all sorts of opportunities for the way that AI can make the public sector more effective. And we're going to be addressing that from school upwards. It's one of the reasons why we had the review of the curriculum, so that we can make sure that young people have got the skills and the understanding of the workplace that they're moving into.
Nigel Farage has been referred to the Met Police over his election expenses in Clapton. Reformers said that they're inaccurate claims, that they're from a disgruntled former councillor, and that they deny breaking electoral law. What's your response?
Well, I think if the police are investigating it, we need to leave the police to do that. We have rules on our electoral expenses in order to make sure that everybody standing in our elections has a fair chance, and therefore it's a serious issue. But I think if the police are investigating it, we need to leave that to them.
I also did want to talk, while we have you as well, with your kind of women and equalities hat on, about the report that we've had today on Sky News looking at birth trauma. We've got these 3 women who've come forward and shared their experiences of childbirth. And, I mean, honestly, the stats are kind of unbelievable. The Care Quality Commission saying that almost half of maternity units are unsafe. I mean, what is going on?
Look, lots of people will be having very safe and I was going to say enjoyable, but no. Speaking from experience, never.
I'm not sure I'd use that adjective. I'll be honest.
Right. Very safe births, but of course there will be times when things go wrong, and that's just an awful thing to happen for you as a mother. That's why we need our maternity units operating as effectively as possible with the very best evidence about what women need when they are going through childbirth. I know it's a real focus of Wes Streeting in the Department of Health and of the health service itself. I was, up until last year, I was working in the NHS, chairing big NHS trusts, and there was a phenomenal amount of focus on how we can improve our maternity care, even then.
That's the sort of government answer about, what you're doing and how serious you're taking it. But, as a kind of a mum, as a woman, do you think there's an issue with women just not being listened to?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's 27 years since the last time I gave birth, but I'm sure, and in fact we've seen from some of the research that's happened, that there have been too many times when women haven't been listened to about their concerns about what's happening. That's at the heart of any good healthcare, and particularly maternity care, that you're listening to the patient. In this case, you're listening to the mum, and you're making sure that you act on that.
Good to have you on, Jackie Smith, speaking to us there. Jackie Smith. Speaking to us there about the government's plans to try and upskill the workforce on AI, and of course that reaction as well to the reporting that we'll be doing this morning on maternity services. Coming up, we are going to be looking at the meeting that's going to be taking place soon between Keir Starmer and Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Could there be a breakthrough? What role does Europe have to play in keeping Ukraine safe? We'll be talking to the chair of Ukraine's Foreign Affairs Committee, Oleksandr Merezhko.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today.
Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Welcome back. The Prime Minister will meet with his German and French counterparts, Chancellor Friedrich Merz and President Emmanuel Macron today, as well as the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. They'll be discussing the ongoing negotiations to end the war with Ukraine, with US President Donald Trump's original proposals being redrafted. Keir Starmer has vowed to stand with Ukraine and previously has said the country's security is vital for Europe's security. Joining us to discuss all of this is the chair of Ukraine's Foreign Affairs Committee, Oleksandr Merezhko. Thanks so much for joining us. Are you hopeful at this point, or as fearful as ever that any kind of peace deal that comes around will be unfavourable or unacceptable, perhaps I should say, to Ukraine?
Thank you for having me. Of course, I remain hopeful when it comes to solidarity between Ukraine and European leaders. It's tremendously important for us to keep this format when we're supported and we feel your solidarity, including, of course, the British Prime Minister Starmer. It's important because that's the only way we can deal with President Trump and to defend Ukraine's interests. But at the same time, with regard to so-called peace plan, I'm very skeptical, honestly speaking, because I don't see any changes in the position of Russian dictator Putin, because he hasn't abandoned his demands, which in reality mean surrender for Ukraine. And of course, we cannot agree to that. We cannot agree, for example, to withdrawal of our troops from the territories which hasn't been occupied by Russia. And from my perspective, it means that it signals that Putin is weak. He understands that he is not capable to take the rest of the Donbass or Donetsk region by force. And that's why he's using political and diplomatic means. And sometimes he's trying to use our American friends, unfortunately, to achieve this goal.
I'm sure you saw President Trump's comments overnight. And in particular, he said that he felt that Zelensky's people, the people behind him in political positions, loved the latest deal, but that President Zelensky hadn't even read it yet. What is your response to that? Are all of the members of the legislature, yourself included, behind President Zelensky, or is there a bit of a gap between you and him?
Yeah, of course, I was surprised to say the least by this statement by President Trump, because I know the president and he is very careful. He reads all the documents, especially such crucially important document as this peace proposal by President Trump. And I'm absolutely certain that he has acquainted himself with this plan. He has read it. And when President Trump is talking about people who are people, we members of Ukrainian parliament, we represent people. And I haven't read it, despite the fact that I'm chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee. I haven't read this peace proposal by President Trump. And as far as I know, my colleagues, members of parliament, also haven't read it. And I'm concerned because we're in a very vulnerable position right now. And I'm afraid that there is a temptation for President Trump to reach a deal at any price for Ukraine, and to use our weakness. And for us, it's totally unacceptable, because we want to survive as a country. We want authentic, realistic security guarantees. And of course, we cannot sacrifice our territories and our people, because it will not be peace, it will be appeasement of the aggressor, and it will only embolden Putin and other potential aggressors in the world.
What do you hope to come from today's meeting? I mean, clearly, you've used the phrase solidarity. Already, Zelensky has solidarity from the likes of Macron, Merz and Starmer. But does Ukraine need a lot more, particularly in light of what you're saying about the US?
Well, of course, we need more weaponry, because there are only two things which can stop Putin's aggression. First of all, advanced, contemporary, sophisticated weaponry, including long-range missiles. And we also need material support to go through very difficult winter, maybe the most difficult winter in our history, and we need sanctions. But of course, most of all, we need leadership. This is the key problem nowadays, the lack of leadership. And it seems that, like the United States and President Trump, they're trying to avoid this role, being a leader of free world. And that's why we need leadership from European leaders, including the UK. So we have to have a kind of collective leadership. And that's the only way we can deal with Putin's aggression against Ukraine and with those who are trying to undermine democracy in the world.
Just finally, I wanted to ask you about some of the corruption charges towards President Zelensky of late. Obviously, it's led to his chief of staff, one of his most important advisors, to leave office. Are these serious concerns for your president?
Of course, we have two fronts. First of all, front against Russian aggression and front against corruption within the country. And President, he has reacted in a very positive way, in a sense that he has supported anti-corruption, anti-graft agency. And for me, this corruption scandal, it has its positive side. It signifies, it means that Ukraine is very serious about fighting corruption. And I wish other countries in the world also had the same independent and effective anti-corruption agency, for whom it doesn't matter who is the suspect, whether he's at the top of a hierarchy or not. So it's extremely important example to follow for other countries, because it would be much worse if this scandal would be covered like in many countries, unfortunately.
Oleksandr, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, a year after the fall of Bashar Assad's regime, the Syria Refugee Relief Fund is launching an online exhibition and art sale featuring works by children from the Mamdouli refugee school camp. The showcase, called the Gallery of Hope, will feature portraits and stories from the children, with proceeds directly funding schooling for displaced children. The organisation has raised over £1 million to provide education for thousands of Syrian children. Joining us now to talk about all of it is the co-founder of the fund, and foreign correspondent photographer Will Wintercross. Will, thanks so much for joining us. Very good to see you.
Thank you.
Clearly, before we get to this fantastic Gallery of Hope, we are on the one-year anniversary of the fall of the Assad regime. It's amazing how sort of time flies. How often have you been in and out of the country since then?
I was last there in May, and I went in through the northeast of the country, through the Kurdish area, and I was there for about a week and a half. I visited various schools you just mentioned on your opening lines there, and one thing that I really noticed in comparison to previous trips was this incredible sense of hope, which is part of the reason we called the Gallery of Hope.
Well, it's great to hear that perspective of hope. Did you also witness or experience, I guess, how much work there is to be done, how far away delivering on that hope is?
Yes, and that's a very good question. For 14 years, the war in Syria had raged, and the Western world sort of stood by on the sidelines, and we talked about these ideas of human rights and so on, but we didn't actually do anything about it. But now, a year on after the fall of Assad, I think there's now an opportunity for us all to try to pull together in terms of the international community to do what we can do, see what we can do to sort of support these people now that they have got rid of Assad.
In terms of the Gallery of Hope and the message behind it, I mean, to what extent has the experience of young people in Syria, now I guess not that young people, as you said, the 14-year reign beforehand, been worse? I mean, it's not really a competition, but been as bad as anyone around the world?
I think children always suffer most, and if you think of a 14-year-old child today, they've known nothing but war. And if even an adult today in Syria, an 18-year-old, the first 4 years of their life they probably don't remember. So they have suffered. I think the Syrian people have suffered quite uniquely. What was quite unique about the Syrian war was the fact that schools and hospitals were targeted deliberately by the Assad regime, who's now obviously out, and Russia. So you're right, it's not a competition, but the war in Syria took a new turn in terms of the savagery, in terms of the way it was prosecuted.
And this exhibition, tell us a bit more about it. Where can people find it and I guess buy the print so that the money goes through to these children?
We have opened, so the Gallery of Hope is on our website, estwlf.co.uk, and for £250 you can buy a print from a Mamdouli refugee camp school, which is the school we support, and £250 is important because that's what it costs us to get a child through a year of education. And you can buy originals on there as well, actual original pieces of artwork, which I got out of Syria myself when I was there last time. But £250 will cover the cost of a child for a whole year.
And in terms of the situation there on the ground, just to pivot back to that, I'm not sure when you're next going, but obviously you're there in May. As much as there is hope, is there also other pockets of persecution that you've witnessed or are aware of?
I think a lot of people have been amazed by actually how relatively peaceful it's been over the last year. I, for one, was very concerned that sectarian violence would break out across the whole country. There has been some very serious sectarian violence in the west, on the coast, but relatively speaking, I think it's been quite peaceful. And I think it's probably because after 14 years of war, despite obviously the clear hatred amongst some people, the Syrians want to pull together and they want to see a much brighter future for them all.
Will, thanks so much for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Will Wintercross.
Now, Thailand has launched airstrikes along the border with Cambodia. Let's find out what is going on. We can speak to our correspondent, Cordelia Lynch, who is in Bangkok for us now. Cordelia, just bring us up to speed on what's been happening.
Good morning to you, Sophie. Well, there was a fragile truce between these two neighbours, and that looks very frayed this morning. I think it is hanging in the balance. Now, both sides accusing the other of starting the violence, which has left one Thai soldier killed and 4 injured in 2 northeastern provinces, and 3 Cambodians injured along their northern border. Now, Thailand has said that it deployed F-16 fighter jets and that it is targeting military locations. The Cambodian former leader, Hun Sen, who remains very influential there, and he is indeed the father of the country's current premier, has urged restraint against what he refers to as Thai aggressors. We are expecting to hear more from the Thai government as well this afternoon. Why this is significant is these are two neighbours that have been warring for a long time now. There has been conflict over this disputed border for over a century. Recently, back in July, we saw an escalation in that confrontation, and it left 48 dead and 300,000 people displaced. A truce deal was brokered with the help, in part, of Donald Trump. He trumpeted that as one of his key foreign policy successes. But now, of course, it once again looks very fragile. They had extended this pact, if you like, in October. But in recent months, the Thais have been accusing Cambodia of laying landmines. I think the calculation now is whether both sides have an appetite for this to go further. It doesn't yet look like it, but we can see, obviously, a lot of scope for miscalculation between the two. And I think it's clear that their disputes, their conflict, are not yet resolved.
Cordy, thanks so much. Cordelia Lynch for us there in Thailand.
Now, there's just one other story that I wanted to talk about today, and it's about a think tank, Labour Together, who've been polling people, party members of the Labour Party, on potential leadership candidates. Now, this sounds boring. I mean, it sounds like the kind of thing that happens all the time. Why are we interested in this? But I just need to emphasise how important Labour Together is and how vital they were as an organisation to the whole Keir Starmer leadership project. Mm-hmm. And I find the fact that, according to The Times, the survey sent to Labour Party members, talking about 8 senior Labour politicians, is happening, is really, really significant. It shows how transactional they are, to be honest, as well, right? If they don't think Keir Starmer is working for that project of the kind of centre-right, centre-right, the Labour Party, centre-left, then they're willing to move on.
And just... I mean, there's an element of this that reminds me of the final year or two of the last government. Yeah. Not the first year or two. Yeah. I mean, is there that's a sort of standout point on this? Yeah, I think that's it, exactly. It does feel like the kind of the attention, if you like, has shifted. And it's just this organisation, Labour Together. I mean, like Morgan McSweeney, who's the current chief of staff there, used to run it. Josh Simons was involved in it. He's now a minister. This is right at the heart of this Labour government. This is not a random think tank. I think it's very, very significant. They've named Wes Streeting, Bridget Phillipson, Shabana Mahmood, Ed Miliband, Darren Jones. I don't know what's going on. And these are as potential people that could take over. They're basically just asking them, Labour members, questions about these candidates. So they're asking them things like, who stands the best chance of leading Labour to electoral victory at their next election? It feels to me like they probably, knowing Labour Together, they probably have a couple of candidates that they like in their minds, and they're trying to work out in a very, very, kind of transactional way who was the most likely of winning over the membership. Mm-hmm. Really interesting. And one to watch. And it is a bit of a... You're right to set up. It's a bit of a Westminster Insider story, but actually it's becoming more widespread. It's no longer just that, and it's obviously very, very relevant as I guess we approach the May local elections. Probably not before then. Yeah, that's 100%. That's the pinch point. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Meanwhile, the Work and Pension Secretary, Pat McFadden, has told Sky News that doing nothing shouldn't be an option for out-of-work young people. So he's announced an £820 million package. It's all about trying to get more 16 to 24-year-olds off benefits and into work, education or training. Ashish Joshi has this.
Tanya graduated from university 3 years ago. She shared her mental health struggles with her new employer, but their promises of support never came. She was signed off sick for 15 weeks over 2 years before finally leaving with burnout.
Unfortunately, when I came back from my sick leave, I had my mid-year performance review, and one of my colleagues had written in my mid-year performance review that the project momentum got ruined because Tanya took time off sick. And for me, that made me realise that this just isn't an inclusive environment for me.
Tanya's is an increasingly familiar tale, and one which is driving a significant rise in young people leaving the workforce. The number of 16 to 24-year-olds known as NEETs, that's someone not in employment, education and training, has been rising since 2021 and now stands at 946,000. Of these, 39% are unemployed, but the majority, that's the remaining 61%, they're economically inactive, which means they're not employed or looking for a job. The government says much more help will be given to these people to move them off benefits and into employment.
The idea behind the Youth Guarantee proposals that we are announcing today is to offer those young people a better future. And I think this should be a Labour cause because it's an issue not just of unemployment, but of inequality too. These numbers are worse in the poorest parts of the country.
The plans include an £820 million package, including money for training and work experience in construction, hospitality and health and social care. But the offer of help comes with a warning. People who do not engage with the process will lose their benefits.
A big cause of this is of young people not engaging is rise of ill health, rise of the number of people who are struggling with their mental health, and threatening people in that situation with sanctions and removing financial support is not the way that would be logical to supporting that. What we probably need is support to boost confidence, to think about and build hope for the future.
Tanya now runs her own Gen Z-led consultancy, advising employers on how to attract and retain young people by offering the right support.
There really needs to be a better focus and understanding of mental health in the long term. I think we're still seeing mental health challenges in the short term as an acute challenge that needs to be overcome and then things are fine. But I think what's really missing within these policies is seeing the longevity and the long term.
The demand for her services looks set to grow. Ashish Joshi, Sky News.
Well, when we come back, we're going to be talking about Britain's new Formula One world champion, Lando Norris. We'll be right back.
Feels good to say that.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor. The reality of life under Russian fire.
People don't want to leave, even though help is here to evacuate them. They say they want to sort out their belongings first. It's absolute chaos.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety as Russian drones will be trying to find this position.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I've been covering Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
When rockets fall, I try to hide my head under my toys.
Illustrating Ukraine's lost childhood. Hopes and dreams framed by war. Conflict in the Middle East is another major focus.
An incredibly dangerous moment. We saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercept going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful.
With global threats rising, I also explore defence and security in the UK and across NATO. This US aircraft carrier is operating in European waters in a deliberate show of force.
This is routine training for NATO, but should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly,
pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real. Tucked away in the National Archives are some of the UK's old defence plans. The scale of this bunker underlines how seriously governments took the threat of nuclear attack and global conflict. Should allies listen to Vladimir Putin's sabre-rattling?
No, they shouldn't, and they don't.
Sky News, the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Welcome to the show. Jackie is here with us, and there is really one story this morning. Britain has a new Formula One world champion.
Yep, Lando Norris is world champion. He's the 11th different Brit, to win the title, 35th man in all, which is incredible when you think, Formula One racing goes back, which seems like forever, but there's only 35 guys who have actually won it. And he wakes up world champion this morning. I hope he's still partying, honestly. I just think, that season is long. It was a really tense weekend for him. And there was so much pressure on him. Yes, he had a 12-point cushion, but he still had to go out there and finish third. And although there was no real incidents in that race, I think his moments were the most dramatic because he pitted, he had to weave his way back and do some good overtaking, which, heart in mouth at that point. And then Tsunoda, he had to get past Verstappen's teammate, who was obviously challenging for a world title as well, and he tried to block him and ran him off the track, and then there was a steward's inquiry, and it could have been all so different, and but he held his nerve, and he said the last 2 laps, actually, I knew what I had to do. It just felt like karting once again. It was just like uncomplicated, just do what I need to do without doing anything rash or stupid. Cricketers should have watched that. It was simple, and he had great speed at the end. And I think the team said, you can back off. You don't need to do anything. We're good now.
Can I ask you both about, because you both know more about F1 than I do, but I was really struck by some of the comments that he made after the match, like saying that he did it his way, that he's not as aggressive as other leaders. Yeah. Is he like a different kind of champion?
I think he's kind of known as a nice guy, and he also wears his heart on his sleeve, right? Yeah. So he sort of says quite a lot, whereas a lot of them are very buttoned up. I mean, you wouldn't get what comes out of Lando's mouth coming out of Oscar Piastri's mouth, for example. He's just a very, very different character. And obviously Verstappen is, he's really gung-ho, he's really aggressive. He is, I am the best, and that's not Lando. But, he will have number 1 on his car next season. He is the best. And a lot of people sort of make a lot of the fact he's from a very wealthy background, and his father is a multi-millionaire, on the rich list. Yes, that helped him when he was younger, when he was karting, and they were having to go round the circuit around the world, because you've got to pay for that yourself and for the car, no doubt. Yes, that helped them, but he then had to do it once he was at McLaren. It was up to him, his skills, his application, how much he wanted it. I mean, he was a T-boy at McLaren when he joined, pretty much. He's a 17-year-old, like, learning the ropes. And he sort of learnt them better than everyone else. He took his chance, right?
Yeah.
So.
And then some. He's world champion. He's the best in the world.
It's life-changing, although it's hard to see how their lives could get any more glamorous than they are already.
Just quickly, finally on that, like, I thought watching this stuff afterwards, you said heart on his sleeve, like, he got quite teary.
He didn't take his helmet off for such a long time, and it's because he was just so overwhelmed and full of tears, and he thought, well, I never cried. This is what's going on.
Yeah. The only thing, and I'd add as well, like, the very first thing he said was, I'm so grateful I've done this for my parents and for my team. And it is quite a selfish sport, Formula One, or gets that image, because you have these superstars and it's all about them. And I just thought that was really nice, really interesting. And the team love him, right? The McLaren team.
Yeah, they do. And they always thank their team. And it was all about, we've got to get back to the team in Britain, because obviously there's a lot of team
They're based in Surrey and Woking.
Yeah, based in Woking. So there'll all be sort of a lot of them going back there today to celebrate with those who were left behind. But it was, it was really emotional. I've got one child in one room watching a teary Christmas movie in tears. I was crying watching the Formula One.
I love it.
Because I just think all that effort, all that tension, all pouring out, you feel it with them a little bit.
Should we go from one team player, we've got a minute, to a non-team player, Mo Salah?
Oh, my goodness. Yes, he was at the training ground yesterday as normal for training, having dropped that bombshell the night before saying, I've been thrown under a bus, I've got no relationship with Arne Slot. He was not playing again in the draw with Leeds at the weekend, had a face like thunder. I mean, no player likes to be dropped, obviously, but he was acting like it was all about him. And given that he's not been in form and given that his team are on a dreadful run of form, and Slot is under a lot of pressure anyway. Talk about throwing more pressure for your manager. It'll be interesting to see whether he goes to Italy. There's an open training session today at Liverpool at 11:45. There's a press conference tonight at 6:45 in Italy. It will be interesting to see how that's addressed, because those comments were incendiary.
Extraordinary stuff. Such an iconic player, but a problem that you can see brewing at Liverpool as well. Thanks very much, Jackie. We'll have lots more, including that big F1 win in just a few moments' time.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Good morning, it is 8 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophy and Wilf, a very good morning from me as well.
Ukraine's President Zelenskyy has headed to Downing Street today, so are the leaders of France and Germany. But President Trump starts to get impatient with delays to his peace deal.
I'm not sure that Zelensky's fine with it. His people love it. But he hasn't read it.
For 2025, Lando Norris slams down the champagne bottle.
Lando Norris becomes Formula One world champion. He's the 11th Brit to win motorsport's biggest prize. He's just 26.
I love you, Mum. I love you, Dad. Thanks for everything. I'm not crying.
Reform UK denies Nigel Farage broke electoral law after claims he falsified expense claims.
Also this morning, we're looking at a difficult issue, trauma during childbirth.
So we'll be hearing the experiences of 3 women about their experiences at NHS hospital trusts.
Hey, very good morning to you. Volodymyr Zelenskyy is heading to Downing Street once again today for a meeting, this time with Sir Keir Starmer as well as some fellow leaders.
So he'll be joined as well by the French President Emmanuel Macron and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. It's the pressure, I guess, is on for Europe to try and find a peace deal that could be accepted by both sides.
The 4 leaders are expected to discuss what the next steps might look like if a deal is struck with Russia. Last night, US President Donald Trump, whose team is spearheading negotiations, of course, was asked about the discussions.
We've been speaking to President Putin, and we've been speaking to Ukrainian leaders, including Zelenskyy, President Zelenskyy. And I have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed that President Zelenskyy hasn't yet read the proposal. That was as of a few hours ago. His people love it, but he hasn't. Russia's fine with it. Russia, I guess, would rather have the whole country when you think of it. But Russia is, I believe, fine with it, but I'm not sure that Zelensky's fine with it. His people love it, but he hasn't read it.
President Trump there, I think, showing his unhappiness, I guess, with President Zelenskyy, and we're tracking to see how the US President's mind is changing or not as regards to this peace deal. We've got a few more clues as well from his eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., who was talking to our world presenter Yalda Hakim at a conference yesterday in Doha. She asked about the peace deal and the White House's priorities.
It's probably well over 200,000 Americans that I spoke to directly. And I'd be in a room like this and I'd ask, is Russia-Ukraine a top 3 issue for anyone in the room? Nothing.
But is your hunch that President Trump is going to walk away?
I think he may. What's good about my father and what's unique about my father is you don't know what he's going to do. The fact that he's not predictable, he's not following the playbook of every clown who's, again, been a bureaucrat for decades, you don't know.
Well, Rob's here to talk about this and, of course, most importantly, the meeting in Downing Street today, which the Prime Minister will be pleased he's hosting. I guess President Zelenskyy will be wondering if anything concrete actually comes from it.
Yeah, there's not that much briefing about what actually is going to go on at this meeting. I think it's something of a stock take on the peace talks, but also it's a sort of indication. I guess it's about the diplomacy, the messages you send out. It's Europe, the UK standing behind Ukraine. I have to say, though, my general rule for foreign affairs more broadly at the moment is things start to move when Donald Trump decides that they're going to move. And when it comes to Ukraine, you could probably add in Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelenskyy at the same time. That's not to kind of disparage European efforts and things like that. It's just to sort of put it in context. And I guess we're going to get to a point where Europe, the UK, might have a difficult decision to make. If you're in a place where Donald Trump believes that there is a deal that should be accepted by both sides, that it involves ceding territory, what does the UK do? We had Pat McFadden, a senior minister, on air yesterday saying that essentially the rules for these peace negotiations should be that it doesn't reward Russian aggression and that Ukraine should be in charge of its own future. Like, it is very conceivable that you get to a point not in the too distant future where both of those rules are going to be broken. What does Keir Starmer do then?
Yeah, it's such a good point, because they have said that throughout, haven't they? That, you know, firstly, you know, with the land, the territory is really important, that it will just encourage other aggressors if they seem that they're giving Russia a load of land as a reward almost for this invasion and killing all these people. But then it would take a huge stepping up by Europe if they were going to, I guess, ignore America.
Yeah, and the security guarantees will be important as well. Pat McFadden yesterday was talking about not leaving Ukraine toothless. So a lot of the discussions today, you imagine, will be around the coalition of the willing idea that the UK and France have been spearheading. But again, you know, that's important because I think it's important just in terms of diplomacy that is there, and the UK and Europe is being seen to stand behind Ukraine. But then those practical questions as well. We've had military experts questioning whether the UK armed forces are in enough of a fit state to actually realistically contribute in any meaningful way to a force like that. So it all comes back to what can America bring to the table, which all comes back to that central rule of things move when Donald Trump decides they move.
We've got some of those tanks that deafen your troops, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
We could use those.
They sound...
By the way, I do agree. It's a joke, but it's like serious. I agree with Rob Powell's #1 lesson of foreign affairs.
Yeah, that's good.
I would not be as arrogant as to name it as that.
It's totally right.
It's completely right. You know.
Call it the Powell law.
Yeah, the Powell law. It's going to be taught for centuries. Well, or until President Trump's term ends.
Yeah, and then it'll
Unless
change.
there's another one. You know, there we go. Rob, great stuff. Thanks very much. Now, 3 women have spoken out about their traumatic birth experiences at NHS hospitals. One told Sky News they were made to feel expendable. Another, like she didn't matter. A pattern of women's voices being ignored and safety concerns overlooked has been uncovered in independent reviews across England, and now maternity care is increasingly under the microscope with a nationwide investigation into failings at 14 trusts.
I think the thing about the story is that lots of people, many people, even the majority of people, will have their own birth story, whether it's something that happened to you, something that happened to someone that you know. We're going to hear from 3 people who've decided to speak out and share theirs, Lauren and then Joe, and a warning, I should say, that some viewers might find what they have to say distressing.
And then one of the doctors came in with a ultrasound machine, and he was like, "I'm really sorry, but I can't find a heartbeat." And honestly, in that moment, the sounds that came out of me, I don't even know what they were. They're not something I could ever replicate. It was just this moment of pure horror and pain. And I remember shouting to the midwife, "I need to push." And she just said, "Just let whatever needs to happen, happen." And that felt really surreal to me, because in everything I'd always seen, they kind of tell you when to push and how to push. And I remember in that moment thinking, I'm so different, like, this isn't normal.
I felt entirely expendable. It felt like it didn't matter what happened to me or my body, the most intimate part of my body. I felt just like a vessel. It feels so strange after you've delivered, and I can remember looking down at my body and feeling like it had become a battleground.
It felt really like it was like something's wrong with my left arm. Like I feel like in my chest, I'm like, something's wrong. I'm like, oh, I think I'm having a heart attack or something. And I thought, oh no, something's not right. I'm gonna die if they don't listen to me. And of course, no one's listening to me at that point. So I was basically dying, and they hadn't realized how much blood I had lost.
Oh, it's so difficult to hear, I think, what those women are saying. And also, I think for many of us who've given birth, it's also quite close to home, not being listened to, feeling of being out of control. I should say around 13 babies die shortly before, during or soon after birth every day in the United Kingdom as well.
Well, this is a story we're going to talk a lot more about. You should look at the full piece online with the extraordinary testimony there from Lauren, Joe and Gabriella. You can scan the QR code that'll be on your screen any moment now. We are going to be joined by a couple of guests in studio in the next 5 minutes about it as well. We do just want to read you as well the statement from the Department of Health and Social Care, who said too many women and families have been devastated by serious failings in NHS maternity and neonatal care. We're determined to deliver lasting change and ensure all families receive safe, high-quality maternity care. They say they've commissioned a national independent investigation and are setting up a task force to root out systemic failures.
We've been talking, obviously, about how many people have been impacted by this. If you have been affected by the story, you can contact the Samaritans at any time on 116 123 or email joe@samaritans.org. More on this story coming up.
Now, we've got a new British Formula One champion, Lando Norris, who won the World Drivers' Championship yesterday at just 26 years old.
So he came third at the Desert Decider in Abu Dhabi. That was enough to allow him to claim the World Championship. Shaman's got all the action from what happened last night.
It's lights out and away we go. Verstappen comes right over to cover Lando Norris. Leaves a gap for Pianist if he wants it.
After 24 gruelling Grand Prix races, his relentless pursuit has finally paid off.
Papaya rules in 2025. Lando Norris crosses the line.
The British McLaren driver has at last been crowned Formula One World Champion.
I love you, Mum. I love you, Dad. Thanks for everything. I'm not crying.
It was a spectacular showdown against stiff competition, with four-time world champion Max Verstappen hot on his heels and teammate Oscar Piastri close behind.
I now know what Max feels like a little bit, and I want to congratulate Max and Oscar, my two biggest competitors the whole season. It's been a pleasure to race against both of them.
Surrounded by friends and family in Abu Dhabi, the 26-year-old has become the 35th Formula One world champion.
And just look at the joy. That's what it means to become a world champion.
Lando, amazing! I'm so happy for him. It's been really nervy, but what a way to finish.
Great race, great result. It's the whole season's work.
Yeah,
and we can relax for off-season and go again next.
I don't even know what to say.
For 2025, Lando Norris slams down the champagne bottle and stands on the podium as world champion.
His true talent and hard work helped to claim his maiden title and also made his fans proud, carrying the Union flag to the very top of Formula One. Shaman Freeman-Powell, Sky News.
Congratulations again to Lando Norris. Fantastic to see another British Formula One world champion.
Now, Reform UK have denied claims that Nigel Farage has broken electoral law. This is all claims this weekend that he falsified election expenses.
Yes, so it comes off the accusation that I guess there's rules for local spending in your constituency, rules for national spending. And I think at the heart of this is the idea that some things should have been classified as local spending, were classified as national spending, and had they been classified correctly, it would have pushed them above the local limit. And it comes from a member of his team in the constituency suggesting this was the case. But as you said, this is something that Reform have very loudly and clearly denied. They gave us a statement. These inaccurate claims come from a disgruntled former councillor. The party denies breaking electoral law. We look forward to clearing our name.
Yeah, it's all about his campaign in Clacton-on-Sea, as Wilfred was saying. So what happens next? The Met, I guess, decide whether or not they want to investigate, whether it meets the threshold for it. A very robust denial from Reform, who are effectively trying to say that this man, Richard Everett, is a disgruntled councillor.
Yeah, so just a referral to the police at this stage. Now, we've got a new episode of our New Look Hotspot series. This time, our chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsey's in the West Bank, giving you a behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to report from there.
3 minutes, you need to go from here. Okay. Unless you want to be arrested, okay?
But why?
Just, this is the order.
You took the guy name and title or what? What is doing? film it. Roll.
Those clips we did with Alex last week, Stuart this week, they're always so compelling to see behind the scenes of what Stuart and Alex get up to when they're in some of the world's most dangerous but important places to report from. There's a dedicated YouTube channel now, Hotspots, well worth checking out. That's the second episode now that's dropped in the last week.
Now, look, we're going to talk again about childbirth. It's something we've been speaking about on the show an awful lot this morning because it impacts an extraordinary number of people. And many of us, I think, will have their own experience or will know somebody who's had their own experience. 3 women have come forward on Sky News today to tell us that.
It's an issue close to the hearts of our next guests who've made a short film called 22+1. It follows the story of an interracial couple as they navigate the grief of late-term pregnancy loss.
You made it.
Why?
So, we have options.
Is it my fault? Now, I said that it's really important, of course, that so many people have their own experiences, but there are some women who are more likely to have a bad experience in childbirth. And the figures on this are so stark, which is why I wanted to bring them to you. Black women are more than twice as likely to die than white women during pregnancy, childbirth, or the postnatal period. More than twice as likely to die and more likely as well to lose their child. And for me, it comes back to women not being listened to in the process as well, and the sort of sad truth that certain women, particularly women from non-white backgrounds, are more likely to not be listened to than others. Well, we can talk now to the creator of the film, Pippa Vosper, and the lead actress, Pippa Bennett-Warner, who join us now. Thank you both so much for being with us. This is a story that I feel very, very strongly about, as I know lots of people will as well. Pippa, I just want to reflect on the stats that we just saw, because I think this is a really important part of the story. That if you are a black woman, you are so much more likely to have a bad outcome.
I mean, I think it's, you know, it shouldn't matter what colour you are when you walk into a maternity ward, and unfortunately it does. And those figures and those numbers should feel impossible, but they're real, and they're a disgrace. And Pippa and I are super committed to getting those statistics changed. They've been around for an awfully long time, and it's time for them to there needs to be parity within the maternity health space.
You see, this is it, because I remember looking at these figures for a while. It's a story that I've been interested in for a long time, you know, and it feels it's only recently, to be honest, that we're actually acknowledging how bad the stats are.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't deny the numbers.
No.
Do you think it's like, I guess, doctors or midwives just not listening to black women?
100%. And I think, you know, everybody's looking at data, which is great. One needs data to sort of move, you know, forward. But we've got to look at individual cases. Black women are not just a data point. They're individuals. They are as equal as white women. And that the use of data and the constant sort of referring to that is so frustrating. And that's why we made the film, because something about film, you know, the power of film is that you can connect to it. And if you can connect to it and feel something, you might be activated to help make change.
And I want to talk a little bit more about the film and the message behind it and how it all came together in a moment, if we can, Pippa. But this is a deeply personal issue for you as well, if you're open to sharing that with us.
Yeah, sure. So in 2017, at 5 months into my pregnancy, I gave birth to my son in our bathroom at home, and he was alive for a short space of time. Now, the first question I asked was, did I kill my baby, to the authorities, because I felt like it was my fault. So it came to light that had I been given a greater number of scans, this could have been prevented, because my mucus plug had come out. You know, the bigger my baby got, the more weak my cervix was getting. So to have increased scans possibly could have saved my baby and many other babies. And then when I wrote my book, Beyond Grief, on miscarriage and pregnancy loss, I interviewed 400 women in COVID, because everyone was readily available to talk on Zoom. And across the country, it became very clear very quickly that Black women and women of colour had deeply layered experiences. So I immediately called my friend Pippa, because as a white woman, I can't take this forward. And Pippa and I immediately said that moment that we're going to make a film. And it took 5 years because getting financing, getting people to support a story that wasn't a white experience was much more difficult.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry about your loss.
Thank you.
And it's absolutely heartbreaking. And I think when you're talking about feeling guilt about what happened as well, that's something that I'm sure a lot of women will relate to as well.
Yeah.
Even though it's completely wrong, I should say. Yeah.
And if Pippa, the film obviously is now made. Congratulations on you guys getting it through it. Tell us a little bit about the film, and I guess, do you have a sense of reward on finishing it, given how you said it's going to be such a mountain to climb to get it done?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working every single day. I mean, you know, we don't get paid for this, you know, not that that's the end goal, but we literally work every single day, you know, 7 days a week on this. And we did release it on YouTube last week. We were speaking to distributors, and then we were going to project the film onto a London landmark. We were shut down by authorities, and we've decided there and then we have to get this film out there now.
Yeah.
So we released it last week on YouTube for everyone to have access to it, rather than having to pay for a streaming service.
Can I talk about what actually needs to change? Because, look, if you look at the stats on this, like we were reflecting on some of them earlier, weren't we, how shocking it is that this is so widespread. And I kind of feel that we all have a, story about a birth not going well or someone we know having an awful experience, and it just seems so clear. And yet I just don't understand why we can't move forward and have a better experience. What is there something that you're kind of calling for that you'd like to see happen?
For Wes Streeting, because he talks a lot and he says urgent changes. So now this month, December, there's supposed to be the first round of investigative reporting and, something to come from what he said back in summer, that there's an urgent investigation coming. But I'm sure he means to do well, and I'm sure every person in government means to do well, but whether or not that action's being taken and whether or not anything's going to happen, I'm afraid I don't have much faith. What about you, Pip?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, he's aware of our film and he knows of the work that we've done, and it would be great for him to look us in the eye and actually have a conversation about black maternal trauma and what we're going to do about it.
Do you think the issue is broader than just maternal care? When it comes, I mean, the statistics are so stark in this area that it's undeniable. Do you think it's broader than that in terms of there being racial issues across the NHS or not?
I mean, yeah, possibly, yeah. I mean, I think the maternity ward is a great place to start, and it's a really potent place to start because that's where all the stats are. I feel like, yes, possibly.
Well, with the film, I mean, congratulations again. And it's something that, we can put directly to the Health Secretary, I think, next time he comes in. Have you had, Pippa, any direct engagement and any kind of sense that they're listening?
Well, we've had word back from his core team, and we know they're his core team because very kindly the NHS team that we've been working with at St Thomas's, Gubi Aida particularly, have put us through to the right people. So we know he's aware of our film, but perhaps because Pippa and I are being extremely loud and because of our media connections, he has an apprehension to speak to us because we would be able, where other incredible organisations may not have the access that we have because we are in the media. We know he's there. We know he's aware of us because his direct core team have been back to us. But we want to know, with our voices and our press contacts, why he's not engaging with us. We would love to speak to him.
Well, thank you both so much. Keep being extremely loud. It's extremely important. Thank you for having me with you. Thank you very much. And thanks again. I know it's such a difficult thing to talk about because you have so much trauma and everything. So we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much
for having us.
25 people have died in a fire at a nightclub in the Indian state of Goa. The fire
broke out just after midnight in a village in the north of the state when a gas cylinder exploded. 20 of those killed were nightclub staff. The 5 others were tourists from India.
It is.
I've done it again.
This video claims to show the start of the fire on the first floor of the nightclub. A night of fun and celebrations soon turned into tragedy. The club, packed with over 100 people, was engulfed in flames in one of the most popular tourist destinations of Arpora in North Goa. Preliminary reports suggest the fire had begun from the first floor and soon spread to the whole building. Most of those who killed were the staff in the kitchen, which was in the basement. With no ventilation or fire exit, they suffocated to death. The club, built on a salt pan in an eco-sensitive site, had just one narrow entry and exit, restricting and hindering fire trucks and emergency vehicles to the site.
The incident that took place in Goa today is an unfortunate incident. This should never happen in a tourism state like Goa. Some people operate without permission or illegally, and the fire incident happened because of this.
The government has set up a magisterial inquiry into the incident. The club manager has been arrested and a warrant out for its owners. In a statement on X, Prime Minister Modi said the fire mishap is deeply saddening. My thoughts are with those who have lost their loved ones. May the injured recover at their earliest. Goa is India's prime tourist destination with close to 7 million visitors, including 400,000 foreign tourists who come every year. This is high tourist season, and the industry contributes about 17% of the state's GDP. But tragedies like these do not fare well as a safe destination for people who come to spend their precious time and money and take back a lifetime of memories. Neville Lazarus, Sky News, India.
Well, coming up, we are going to be focusing on what is happening in Syria. What is the latest there? We're going to be speaking to Emma Chernievsky, who's the Chief Executive Officer at the UK for the UN Refugee Agency.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Welcome back to Syria, where the country is marking the one-year anniversary since Bashar al-Assad was overthrown by opposition forces. Aid organisations are supporting returning families there, as well as the millions still living as refugees in neighbouring countries. Joining us now is Emma Cherniavsky, the Chief Executive Officer at UK for the UN Refugee Agency. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And you're recently back a week or so ago from visiting Syria.
That's right.
What's your snapshot of the situation a year on?
Well, it's really an extraordinary time in the country's history, ending a war that lasted more than 14 years. 600,000 civilians were killed in that war. And the country is now rebuilding and looking ahead to the future with hope for the first time in decades. You have thousands of returning families coming from neighboring countries, Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon. And so UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, we've been assisting thousands of returning families over the last year. The challenges are very significant. The country is heavily destroyed by the war. Shelter in particular is a challenge. More than 1 in 3 homes are uninhabitable, and communities need rebuilding from the ground up. And that's very visible when you drive through the country, when you walk through towns. You see that infrastructure, the schools, the clinics, the services, electricity, sanitation, people are often living in very challenging conditions. And of course, now with winter coming, that's the hardest time of year.
And who, as a UN organisation, do you work with? Who's in charge across all of the country, or is it quite regional?
So UNHCR is often the lead agency in coordinating response for displaced people. So during the conflict, we were also on the ground because some 7 million Syrians were internally displaced during the war, in addition to the about 5 or 6 million who fled to neighboring countries. So we were on the ground during the war, and now afterwards we're helping returning families, and we work very closely with other UN agencies like UNICEF, the World Food Programme, but we also work primarily with local implementing partners. That's Syrian NGOs and national NGOs who help us in communities deliver those services and work with returning families at the community level.
I guess what I was trying to get at was, you said there's hope for the first time in 14 years or so. For that hope to last and develop, I think the political situation needs to be stable and effective. Are you hopeful that is materialising or not?
From what I saw in Damascus, in Dara, which actually is where the Syrian uprising began, that's a town on the southwest border, things were peaceful and lives were returning to relative normality. I think there are parts of the country where things have been more tense. But our job as a humanitarian agency is to help everyone, and we did that even during the war. And that's really where, particularly at this time of year in winter, the support of the public and the people of Syria really need our solidarity and our support to be able to rebuild their lives.
A question more broadly, if I may, about aid funding, whether it's your organisation specifically or others. How much pressure is there on you guys, but your sector as a whole, whether it's because of cuts here or more notably cuts in the US and elsewhere?
It is a very challenging time. A number of governments have cut funding to UN agencies, to international NGOs, to aid organizations. And unfortunately, in the case of Syria, the timing just couldn't be worse in the sense that finally, this is one of the very few places in the world where a conflict has ended and people can return home to rebuild their lives. But at this moment, we've had to cut back our programs. So, for example, we used to have 120 community centers operating across Syria, and we recently had to close 50 of those centers at precisely the moment that those families are coming home to those communities, and they need to go to those centers and get that support for their children and for vulnerable citizens. And that lifeline is no longer there.
Emma, thanks so much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Emma Cherniavsky, Chief Executive at the UNHCR. Emma, thank you. Now, Thailand has launched airstrikes along the border with Cambodia.
We can speak now to our correspondent Cordelia Lynch, who is in Bangkok for us covering this. Cordelia, what's happening?
Morning to you, Sophie. Well, this latest confrontation is the most significant since a truce was broken between the two neighbours just 2 months ago. Now, we've seen the border regions of the northeast of Thailand and northern Cambodia affected, and the skirmishes have left 1 Thai soldier dead and 4 injured, as well as 3 Cambodian civilians. Now, both sides are accusing the other of starting the violence, just as they did back in July. That was a 5-day conflict that led to 48 people being killed and hundreds of thousands of people displaced. This time, again, we're seeing a huge number of people evacuated, particularly from the northeast of Thailand. The question is, could this escalate? Arguably, neither side can afford all-out conflict at this point, but of course there is ample scope for miscalculation, especially if we see civilian areas targeted or hit. But so far, the Thai military, who have deployed their F-16 fighter jets, a relatively rare move by them, they say they are only hitting military targets. Now, we've heard from Hun Sen, the influential former leader of Cambodia, who is also the father of the current premier, and he has urged restraint against what he calls Thai aggressors. We've also heard from the Thai Prime Minister as well, who says that they will conduct all military operations to preserve territorial integrity. So there's not especially muscular language from either side right now. This is more than a century-old border dispute between these neighbours. But I think one man keeping a keen eye on all of this will be Donald Trump. He was the one that helped to broker, along with the Malaysian leader, this truce, and will want to keep it intact as part of his claim to be able to resolve conflicts across the world. Certainly right now, this truce, though, looks like it's hanging in the balance.
I'll just talk to myself.
Cordy, thanks so much. Cordy Lynch there for us in Bangkok this morning. Still to come, we're going to speak to film critic and host of Girls on Film podcast, Anna Smith. It's about to be award season. Golden Globe nominations kick that off later today. We'll discuss.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor. The reality of life under Russian fire. People don't want to leave, even though help is here to evacuate them. They say they want to sort out their belongings first. It's absolute chaos. Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety, as Russian drones will be trying to find this position.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I've been covering Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
When rockets fall, I try to hide my head under my toys.
Illustrating Ukraine's lost childhood, hopes and dreams framed by war. Conflict in the Middle East is another major focus.
An incredibly dangerous moment. We saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercept going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful.
With global threats rising, I also explored defence and security in the UK and across NATO. This US aircraft carrier is operating in European waters in a deliberate show of force. This is routine training for NATO, but should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real. Tucked away in the National Archives are some of the UK's old defence plans. The scale of this bunker underlines how seriously governments took the threat of nuclear attack and global conflict. Should allies listen to Vladimir Putin's sabre-rattling?
No, they shouldn't, and they don't.
Sky News, the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Rich and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started. Hello again. Nominees for the 2026 Golden Globes will be announced today. We're going to have that moment live. It's going to happen just after lunchtime.
So thankfully we're not going to have it live. We won't still be boring by then. But Sky News will have it for you. But we're going to get a preview right now. We're joined by Anna Smith, the film critic and host of Girls on Film podcast. Very good morning to you, Anna. Thanks for joining us. Pleasure. So the film, I think, that has had the most buzz, and oddly kind of came out quite a while ago. It's not like it's being released in the sort of final run-up to awards season, which is often the tactic, is one battle after another. So just give us a little reminder of what this film's about, and it's kind of people talking about it for all sorts of the biggest awards.
Yeah, there's a huge buzz. I think this is likely to get the most nominations of any film. This is Paul Thomas Anderson, very respected director, directing Leonardo DiCaprio, Benicio del Toro, Chase Infinity, wonderful starry cast, all of whom are likely to be nominated. And it's the story of a revolutionary. It's decades spanning, which always, I think, works very well for awards ceremonies. You know, it's quite meaty stuff, but it's also quite funny. It's the story of revolutionaries that kind of go into hiding. And then my favourite part of this film is kind of the final act when Leonardo DiCaprio plays a father who's trying to protect his daughter who's suddenly been sort of rumbled her location. So it turns into a bit of an exciting thriller, but also quite a comedic one because he's running around in his dressing gown for most of the time. So that's really played well with audiences and I think will with voters as well.
And this is up for, you know, or could be up for all sorts of awards, including the female lead in this. She's very young.
Yes, Chase Infinity.
Chase Infinity,
yeah.
and was fantastic.
She's wonderful. I think she was a real revelation. That's another reason I sort of really like the end of this film, because she sort of comes into her own, and she's very, very impressive. So, yeah, I think we can see her, quite a lot of her this award season.
Any of the films that you sort of pick out as being ones to watch?
I really enjoyed Song Sung Blue. This is named after a Neil Diamond song, and it's about a Neil Diamond tribute band. It's not come out in the UK yet, but I think Kate Hudson is a shoo-in for a nomination for Best Actress in a Comedy or Musical. And it does fit into that category, although it's actually quite tragic in some ways. It's the true story of a couple that formed this band and went through a lot of trials and tribulations. But it's a story of resilience, and Kate Hudson is wonderful in this. She's opposite Hugh Jackman, so there's a lot to love. There's a lot of sequence, there's a lot of sadness, a lot of songs. Song Sung Blue, definitely my tip.
I hadn't heard of this until the weekend. It sounds like my type of film, to be honest. A little bit of Neil Diamond, who doesn't like that. Well, Sophie probably doesn't, but anyway. But I heard about this not because of prepping for this interview and seeing the trailer, but did you see what the two of them were doing at the weekend? They did an impromptu karaoke at a bar, which is a way to get press for your film. With, you know, you get Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson pop up in a bar and burst out into the song for it, which is a very, you know, the sort of less planned, treaded pathway to get publicity before the award ceremonies.
It's great PR, and when you think about it, another thing they're sort of pushing is the idea that this is 25 years since Almost Famous, and Kate Hudson won a Golden Globe for that. So it's sort of like, you know, 25 years later, she's back on the awards circuit.
I also always love Hugh Jackman's range, from musicals to Wolverine. It's a good spread of roles he's had. Tell us about, because the Globes covers TV as well. So what are the big things you're watching out for in that regard?
Well, I think Adolescence is very likely to get nominated today. I mean, it's a film, TV show that's done really well around the world. It's kind of resonated with a lot of viewers, a lot of voters. Very, very serious subject, which is, a big talking point, hasn't it? So I think Adolescence. But another one for the Globes, I think, would be The Studio, because this is something that, everyone can relate to who works in the industry. And these are sort of, film journalists, TV journalists that are voting in the Golden Globes. And I think The Studio will be nominated for sure.
Was Adolescent this year? God, I feel like it was longer ago than that.
Yeah. So it qualifies for this year's
qualifies
Globes.
into this year's Globes. And so then just also tell us, Anna, as we get into the rest of award season, so Globes kicks it off, and then it's going to be that sort of mad run. I always wonder, actually, the Globes gets a sort of elevated status because we haven't got into the... We're doing a segment about how excited we are about the award season, but there's a bit of kind of tiredness towards award season by the time you get to the Oscars, isn't there?
It's a long journey for those of us who comment. I mean, obviously, I love my job, it's great, but it is many, many months of sort of commentary and waiting and award ceremonies and, people doing the circuit and the promotion. But, of course, we've got the BAFTAs over here and then the Oscars. But, it'll be the end of March by the time it's all done. So quite a long road.
End of March?
Yeah.
Gosh, that is a long road. I see what you mean.
And how are the sort of big screen versus small screen releases doing? Is that still a big factor or not?
In terms of streaming and so on, I mean, I think award ceremony is actually really helpful for the cinema because they have to be out in the cinemas to qualify. So, I hope people are still, going to the big screen experience. It's wonderful.
Anna, great stuff. Thanks for joining us. Anna Smith from the host of Girls on Film podcast.
Now, we've got a little bit more celeb news to bring you because Katy Perry, the pop star, and Justin Trudeau, Justin Trudeau, former leader of Canada, have made it official, finally.
And this is, of course, the fact that they are an item. This has been widely discussed and travelled, although not wide enough for it to be a big story on Sophie's agenda until it has been confirmed on Instagram, publicly. And I have a lot of time for this, personally.
You like it, don't you? I just think that's such an odd... I just can't get my head around it.
It is, but, I mean, good for them. Both fully separated, I think, as long as they are fully separated from their previous marriages, then delighted for them. It gets a lot of grief, I guess, in certain corners, particularly of the American following, the MAGA movement, because they're kind of, both of them, I guess, are a little bit triggering for the right of centre, political movement.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of this whole thing, but Wilf was basically filling in that there is a bit of a Justin Katie backlash.
Exactly, which is why I'm delighted for them. I hope good for them.
There you go. It's not official until it's on Instagram. Jackie's laughing at us. I love it.
We're going to discuss with Jackie in a moment, but we have to get to this story first. 5 people have been taken to hospital after being sprayed with what police have described as a form of pepper spray at Heathrow Airport.
One man's been arrested on suspicion of assault, and police say they're still searching for other suspects as well. Our correspondent Emma Birchley reports.
Confusion about exactly what they were facing. Armed police respond to an unfolding threat, weaving between cars caught up in the emergency response in a multi-storey car park at Heathrow's Terminal 3. The first 999 calls came shortly after 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, and it quickly became clear that some kind of substance had been used in the assault involving a group of men, leaving multiple people injured.
I observed 3 young men, all dressed in black, with their heads covered, obscured. And they seemed a little sketchy. I don't know how else to describe it. And then they bolted and they went through a side door and up some stairs. And at that point, people started coughing, one at a time at first. And then suddenly I sort of looked around and everyone in the room was coughing, including me. There was a burning in my throat. And it was one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced. For a few moments there, when the police were saying, we don't know what's going on, there's been an attack, and the police are running. As you saw in my video, they're handing each other their guns, they're gearing up. There are a few moments where you think, I'm not in control of the immediate future. I don't know where this is going to go. And that is something that I experienced this morning. It was absolutely terrifying, and I 100% believed that I was in a terrorist attack for a few moments there.
Police later said it appeared 4 men had targeted a woman in a car park lift, stealing her suitcase. It's thought they were all known to one another. And it was those in the lift and surrounding area who needed to be treated. Within 9 minutes of the incident being reported, a 31-year-old man was handcuffed and taken into custody. The police say a form of pepper spray was used in the assault, and around half an hour after London Ambulance Service was first alerted, they declared a significant incident, caring for 21 patients, 5 of whom needed to be taken to hospital for further treatment. There was initial concern that it could be terror-related, as the entire area ground to a halt, with roads gridlocked and public transport suspended. Passengers queuing at the station to escape the overcrowded airport. But in a statement, Commander Peter Stevens said, "We are not treating this incident as terrorism. I understand the public's concerns and would like to thank those in the area for their cooperation this morning." It was all over in a few hours, but the large-scale response was no surprise at the UK's busiest airport. There'll be relief that it appears to be an isolated, if terrifying, incident for those caught up in it all. And none of the casualties are thought to have life-threatening injuries. But now the focus for police is tracking down the suspects who managed to escape. Emma Birchley, Sky News, Heathrow.
We've had some really good sports news for British fans over the weekend, haven't we?
We're meant to be talking about the sport, but I think we should keep talking about Katy Perry.
We've been having, Jackie's got views on Katy Perry as well.
No, I like her music. I do. I just feel like she has a lot of partners. It's kind of hard to keep up, along with a lot, a lot of people in Hollywood. Like, who can keep up? It's good for them.
It's the space thing. I can't take any of them seriously after that rocket trip.
But we're all agreed. Can someone just remind me what that album was called again? Was one of the great... Teenage Dream was a great album.
We're not all agreed on this, we're just not.
OK, we're all agreed that it was a very big and successful album.
A lot of people may have bought it. That's as far as
there were lots of fireworks at the F1
California
yesterday.
Girls. Oh, we're moving it on. Okay.
No, that was good. That was excellent.
That was good.
Bring us back on track, Jackie.
That is a great song.
But there were a lot of fireworks. Let's talk about the F1. Come on, it doesn't happen very often. Lando Norris, British world champion.
True. I'm all in for this.
It was a difficult path. It was a very tense race. My goodness. I mean, yes, he only had to finish third, only. But there was so much jeopardy in that race. So many things could have gone wrong when you've got so much pressure riding on your shoulders. And it was true. He came out of the pit stop. He had to make lots of overtaking manoeuvres, which, your heart was in your mouth. He then almost got pushed off the track by Max Verstappen, who was his rival, his teammate. He could have had a penalty for that, he didn't. And then he had to just see it through to the end, while Charles Leclerc, for most of that race, was on his tail, trying to overtake him into third. And if he finished fourth, he wouldn't have won. But he stuck it out, and he said the last 2 laps, it felt like karting again. I knew what I had to do, I just did it. And it was, best man won. But the 3 in the top 3 could have all won that.
Can I ask you both, because you're both more familiar with this than me. Lando Norris, who is this guy? Who is he?
He's
She knows Jackie. She knows more than both of us.
He's 26. He's born in Bristol. He's got a very wealthy dad, which is great in Formula 1 because it's such an expensive sport in terms of you start in karting, you travel around the world, you've got to pay for all of that, you've got to pay for all the coaches and all of that when you start out, and he could, right? So he had that great start in life. But once he was in there, he's the guy who had to do it, and he was always about improving, and that was, that was all the years that he's been at McLaren. He's been there since he was 17. All the years he's been T-boy and just, absorbing all the information and being on, in Formula 1 for the last few years and not quite doing it and just being the new boy. And finally, it all comes good. And it was a big question. Is he, does he have the mentality to see this through? Will he make a mistake at the crucial moment? But he didn't. And he did have the mentality to see it through, which was very unlike England's cricketers the other day, who really could have done with a bit of that, tunnel vision. I'm just going to get this done, however I get it done. And he's a nice guy. He's not he's not a character like Verstappen. He's very aggressive in your face. He's not like that. He's heart on sleeve. Sometimes I have mental challenges and I have to overcome them. And you can sort of see he does a lot of work behind the scenes that are nothing to do with the car.
It was, and his comments after the race were really kind of heartwarming and, thanking the team, thanking his parents. Very likeable, I think, was something that came... Yeah, very normal in that sense. This was a great season. as well. I mean, just to come back to that, I mean, Verstappen, credit to him, his late surge to come back and be in the reckoning shows what a brilliant racer he is. Not the best in the world this year, Lando Norris is, but proving how good he is.
Well, it's also the car as well.
But important for the sport that he didn't quite win, because it's nice to have a new champion after 4 years.
To have 5 in a row, everyone will, oh, OK, so he did it again. You know, his team is set up, Red Bull, for him. You know, his car is set up for him. It's all about Max. The way the McLarens are set up is either one of them could have won, and that's much harder to do when you've got 2 racers who could win the title. You know, you've got to please both drivers, and that's what they've done. So in a way, it's sort of in a more impressive achievement, in a way. And you know, he's not like Verstappen. He's done it his own way. But I loved all the tears at the end, the fact he was so overcome. And I think that emotion lasted for hours in all his interviews.
Can I ask about the cricket to finish? You mentioned there that perhaps England cricketers could have done with some of the kind of winning mentality. Obviously, it's now 2-0 down in the series to Australia. It was a crushing defeat, to be honest, for England.
Do you see any way back for them?
No.
That's not the answer I was hoping for.
No, well, you know, at the end, Ben Stokes gave an interview and it was really, really truthful. And it was like, you know, my dressing room is not a place for weak men. I don't know if we have got the mentality for this fight. And you know, when they talked to the Australians, Steve Smith said the difference is we know how to react in conditions and we learn when we're out there what is the right thing to do and not the right thing to do. And England do not seem to be learning and making the same mistakes over and over again. Baseball is not the way to win in Australia. They know that now, but they're 2 down, 2 8-wicket losses. It couldn't really have been more pathetic in terms of a battle.
He showed some fight.
Really did show some fight, but it was all a bit late when you've got 6 wickets down. I mean, there's going to be huge questions asked.
When's the next one?
Next week, but they've got a holiday first.
Jackie, as always, thank you very much. That does it for this app of Mornings. We'll be right back with all of the day's top stories. Don't go now.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond. You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Rich and Frost.
With Sophy and Wilfred, good morning from the both of us. Let's get to it.
President Zelenskyy is headed to Downing Street today. So are the leaders of France and Germany. But President Trump starts to get impatient with delays to his peace deal.
I'm not sure that Zelensky's fine with it. His people love it. But he hasn't read it.
For 2025, Lando Norris slams down the champagne bottle.
Lando Norris becomes the Formula One world champion for the first time. He's the 11th Brit to win, and he's only 26 years old.
I love you, Mum. I love you, Dad. Thanks for everything. I'm not crying.
Former UK denies Nigel Farage broke electoral law after claims he falsified expense claims.
We're also looking at a really difficult issue this morning, trauma during childbirth.
And we'll hear from 3 women about their experiences at NHS hospital trusts.
Hello, good morning and welcome. So President Zelenskyy of Ukraine is heading to Downing Street again for a meeting with Keir Starmer to try and find a way forward on an end to the Ukraine war.
Well, the French President Emmanuel Macron and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz will also be there as the pressure is on for Europe to try and find a peace deal that could be accepted by both sides.
So the 4 leaders are expected to discuss what the next steps might look like if a deal is struck and agreed with Russia. Well, last night, the US President Donald Trump, whose team is spearheading the negotiations, was asked about the discussions.
We've been speaking to President Putin, and we've been speaking to Ukrainian leaders, including Zelenskyy, President Zelenskyy. And I have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed that President Zelenskyy hasn't yet read the proposal. That was as of a few hours ago. His people love it, but he hasn't. Russia's fine with it. Russia, I guess, would rather have the whole country when you think of it. But Russia is, I believe, fine with it, but I'm not sure that Zelensky's fine with it. His people love it, but he hasn't read it.
Meanwhile, President Trump's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., spoke to our world presenter Yalda Hakim at a conference in Doha. She asked about the peace deal and the White House's priorities.
It's probably well over 200,000 Americans that I spoke to directly. And I'd be in a room like this and I'd ask, is Russia-Ukraine a top 3 issue for anyone in the room? Nothing.
But is your hunch that President Trump is going to walk away?
I think he may. What's good about my father and what's unique about my father is you don't know what he's going to do. The fact that he's not predictable, he's not following the playbook of every clown who's, again, been a bureaucrat for decades, you don't know.
Well, that was Don Jr. talking to Yalda over the weekend. Rob's here to discuss, in particular, the meeting today in Downing Street. What time is everything taking place? And is this something that's a sort of, I guess, a welcome distraction from domestic affairs for the Prime Minister?
Around lunchtime, I think they're due to arrive. So you'll have Emmanuel Macron, Friedrich Merz, Volodymyr Zelenskyy as well, all in Downing Street for a meeting. Not too much briefing about what it's... I mean, we know what it's about, obviously, but not too much briefing about the specifics around it. I think it's something of a stock take on where the peace talks, primarily being led by America, of course, have got to. Also important, I think, for the UK to be continually sort of showing support and backing up Ukraine as well, just in terms of the kind of diplomatic smoke signals it sends out. In terms of what it means for Keir Starmer, well, look, yeah, maybe a welcome distraction, but equally, I think in terms of where Labour MPs are and where some Labour supporters are, I can't help but wonder whether they'll look at moments like this and think, haven't you got bigger things to be focusing on and looking at when it comes to the domestic stuff? You know, he's spent a lot of time on Ukraine, with good reason. It is important and it has wider ramifications for the rest of Europe. But we've seen a frequent criticism of Keir Starmer being that maybe he's been a little too focused on that and not focused on sort of what's going on back home.
I mean, so important, what's happening in Ukraine, and we're going to be covering that in full on Sky News. I just wanted to get your take, Rob, on this Labour Together poll that we've seen in the Times. And the reason I'm asking you this is because as you know, obviously, it's such a key part of the Starmer leadership project. The fact that they seem to be testing the water for other potential leaders feels significant?
Yeah, this is this story on the front page of the Times this morning about, I think, a survey that Labour Together have sent out to local Labour parties, to activists, essentially sort of trying to, I think, gauge the temperature of who they think would be best placed to potentially succeed to Keir Starmer. The reason, as you suggest, it's important is because I think Labour Together is the kind of closest you get to, I guess, a Starmerite think tank. I mean, Starmer himself said there's no such thing as Starmerism, but, it is pretty crucial. It was Morgan McSweeney that was heavily involved in it. It was sort of the body that, during the Corbyn years, got together to essentially line up what happens post-Corbyn. So the fact that they are doing that amid the chatter around Labour MPs about what could happen in the months ahead after especially the local elections, I think is pretty significant. And it does remind me of what someone connected to Labour said a while back before Keir Starmer got in. And I think when there were questions over whether he would have to resign over the Keir's Beers thing, and he said, well, if he goes, they'll just move on to the next person. And you sort of belatedly realise that what this person was talking about was probably Labour Together. And when you look at this, you have to wonder, is that what's happening now?
Really interesting. Thanks, Rob. Well, an awful lot to ask our next guest about, from, of course, what's happening in Ukraine to what his leader is up to today, because Kevin Badenoch is talking about the grooming gangs and why she thinks there needs to be a national inquiry. We're joined now by the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, who's on the programme with us. Thanks for being here. Just before we get on to what you're here to talk about on your brief, I just wanted to get your reflections on Ukraine. We've got President Zelenskyy in Downing Street meeting with Keir Starmer and also, of course, leaders from France and Germany as well. And I guess what I wanted to get at is, do you think there needs to be some compromise on the part of President Zelenskyy when it comes to land, for example? We heard from Donald Trump effectively saying that he needs to move.
Well, I think we should support President Zelenskyy in his battle to save his country. He's been invaded by an aggressive neighbour illegally with overwhelming military force, and he is fighting for his country's survival. And we should be supporting Zelenskyy to defend his people. I don't think compelling him to give up land is the right thing to do. If somebody invaded our country, we wouldn't appreciate it if someone else said, well, give up Kent in order to secure some kind of peace. So I'm concerned about some of these proposals coming out of the US, which apparently would require Zelenskyy to give up sovereign Ukrainian territory. We in the West should be really doing everything we can to help him. And that is in our interests as well as being the morally right thing to do, because if you appease a dictator, they simply continue trying to expand. Other dictators around the world are going to be watching carefully about how the West acts in Ukraine. And if they think we're weak, if they think we in the West lack the resolve to defend free sovereign nations, they will draw conclusions from that and might themselves then choose to undertake military action elsewhere in the world. So it's not only the morally right thing to do to support Ukraine, it is also in our wider geopolitical interest as well.
Let's talk about grooming gangs, because Kevin Badenoch is going to be outlining today what you want to see from a national grooming gangs inquiry. What's she going to be saying?
Well, the first thing is the government need to get on with it. I mean, we forced them into announcing this inquiry back in June. They didn't want to. They were dragged there kicking and screaming when faced with a vote in Parliament. Here we are, half a year later, and the government has done nothing whatsoever to get this inquiry set up, and their inaction makes them complicit in the cover-up. Now, when I say cover-up, what I mean is, for many, many years, police forces and local councils deliberately covered up the systematic rape of young girls, mainly, and let me finish the point, Sophie, mainly vulnerable young white girls, because the perpetrators were mainly of Pakistani origin. We need to get to the truth behind that and hold those people who covered these horrendous crimes up accountable, not least to deter it from happening again. Not a single person has been prosecuted for covering up these horrendous crimes. We need to get to the truth.
I just want to state how much I agree on what horrendous cover-up it has been and how many failings there have been. But to say that this government is complicit in that cover-up...
By delay.
That is a big statement to make.
Well, by their delay. I mean, they announced an inquiry under pressure half a year ago, And here we are, and nothing has happened.
I understand.
Nothing has happened.
I absolutely understand the frustration and things, but you know, when we're talking about something as serious as this, and we want to show our anger at the cover-up that some people have done, don't you think it kind of like demeans it slightly if you just say, oh yeah, the government's complicit in that cover-up as well?
Well, I'm afraid by their inaction, that is what is happening.
Okay.
Now, what we're doing today is we're not just sort of criticising from the sidelines, we're actually publishing a detailed terms of reference that we've developed together with survivors and their families, and it's designed to be constructive. I really hope the government pick it up and run with it, appoint a judge to lead the inquiry and just get on with it, because we must expose the truth. And those people who deliberately covered up the rape of young girls simply because they were more concerned about being called racist than they were about protecting girls, that has to be exposed.
We know that this has been going on for many years, decades, in fact. Will former Conservative Home Secretaries be required to give evidence as well, and should they be?
Well, look, I mean, the inquiry chair will have, in our view, should have statutory powers to compel witnesses to attend.
Which would you like to see Conservative Conservative politicians as well?
Listen, that's
look, this is not something that's just happened in the last year, is it?
Listen, that's up to the chair to decide who they call. It's not for me to tell the chair who to call as witnesses and who not. The main point is they'll have statutory powers, legal powers to force witnesses to attend and to force the production of written evidence.
I guess my final question on this is, are you guys like the only people left in the room who still have any faith in public inquiries? Because it feels like, you know, we've seen so many that have cost millions and millions of pounds, they've gone on for years and years and years, and they come up with this kind of woolly set of recommendations and then nothing happens.
Well, listen, there is a concern that public inquiries take ages and ages. There's one, the undercover police inquiry, that's going to go on for 15 years. That is obviously ridiculous. So we think this should be time limited to 2 years, get it done quickly, get to the truth and prosecute those people who covered up these crimes because they cared more about being accused of racism than they did about protecting girls.
A couple of questions on reform for you. Lord Offord, part of your top team in the Lord's energy spokesperson until Saturday when he defected to Reform UK. Is there a bit of a kind of brain drain going on the Conservatives?
No, I don't think so. Look, we've got 120-odd MPs in Parliament. Reform only have, I think it's 5, although they seem to keep quitting. I lose track of how many they've got exactly. So I don't think there's a brain drain. And in fact, the only party coming up with serious and credible ideas to fix our country's problems is the Conservative Party. Reform dream up ideas in a pub, write them on the back of a fag packet, if indeed they're written down at all. They crumble as soon as the media start asking questions. The only party doing the serious, credible work is the Conservative Party.
OK, well, you have to convince the public of that if you look at the polls. Nigel Farage has also been referred to the Met Police over election expenses in Clacton, and they've come up very strongly. They said that it's inaccurate, that it's a disgruntled former councillor. The party denies breaking electoral law. How seriously do you think we should take this?
Well, look, I mean, cheating in an election is very serious, and it's right that the police investigated. It's obviously a whistleblower from inside Nigel Farage's campaign. Look, I don't know clearly if these allegations are true or not. What I do know is they're serious allegations and they should be investigated properly.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Chris Philp speaking to us there.
Now, 3 women have spoken out about their traumatic birth experiences at NHS hospital trusts. One told Sky News they were made to feel expendable. Another, like she didn't matter.
Well, it's the pattern, really, of women's voices being ignored, safety concerns being overlooked, and it's been uncovered in multiple independent reviews across England, and now maternity care is increasingly being looked at with a nationwide investigation into failings at 14 trusts.
We're going to hear now from Lauren, Jo and Gabriella, and a warning. Some viewers might find what they have to say distressing.
And then one of the doctors came in with a ultrasound machine, and he was like, "I'm really sorry, but I can't find a heartbeat." And honestly, in that moment, the sounds that came out of me, I don't even know what they were. They're not something I could ever replicate. It was just this moment of pure horror and pain. And I remember shouting to the midwife, "I need to push." And she just said, "Just let whatever needs to happen, happen." And that felt really surreal to me, because in everything I'd always seen, they kind of tell you when to push and how to push. And I remember in that moment thinking, I'm so different, like, this isn't normal.
I felt entirely expendable. It felt like it didn't matter what happened to me or my body, the most intimate part of my body. I felt just like a vessel. It feels so strange after you've delivered, and I can remember looking down at my body and feeling like it had become a battleground.
It felt really like it was like something's wrong with my left arm. Like I feel like in my chest, I'm like something's wrong. I'm like, oh, I think I'm having a heart attack or something. And I thought, oh no, something's not right. I'm gonna die if they don't listen to me. And of course, no one's listening to me at that point. So I was basically dying, and they hadn't realized how much blood I had lost.
I think the thing with the story is just how many people will have been impacted by it in some way or form. And you heard those three women there talk so eloquently about the battleground that they found themselves in when they were trying to bring life into the world. And I just feel like it's one of those stories that, you know, resonates with so many people. I would say, you can watch the full piece online as well. Scan the QR code to have a look at that in a bit more detail too. Yeah, and the full report is as moving as the clips that we just showed you, but also just want to bring you some of the statistics that Sophie just mentioned, because a recent Care Quality Commission review of maternity services in England was littered with so many statistics that just jump out. One of them being that 47% of maternity units were deemed unsafe. 47% unsafe. I mean, I just can't think of another, place in the NHS where that would be happening. And perhaps linking with that, 58% of women who had a negative birth experience, so they didn't feel listened to during delivery. And for me, that is a fundamental part of the story. Mm-hmm. Women not being listened to, and I think it also links in with the data that we've seen, that we discussed on the programme as well, about women who aren't white, particularly black women, being much more likely, twice as likely to die during childbirth as well. Something, as we said, we've been talking about throughout the show. We should read you this statement that we got from the Department of Health and Social Care. They said, too many women and families have been devastated by serious failings in NHS maternity and neonatal care. We're determined to deliver lasting change and ensure all families receive safe, high-quality maternity care. They say they've commissioned a national independent investigation and are setting up a task force to root out systemic failures. Lots of people, I'm sure, impacted by the story. If you are one of them, we should say that you can contact the Samaritans at any time, 116 123, or email joe@samaritans.org. Now, we've got a new British Formula One world champion, Lando Norris. He won the Drivers' Championship yesterday at the age of just 26. 26, pretty cool. He came third at the Desert Decider in Abu Dhabi, but that third-place spot was enough to allow him to claim the World Championship. Shaman's got all the action from last night.
It's lights out and away we go. Verstappen comes right over to cover Lando Norris, leaves a gap for Piastri if he wants it.
After 24 gruelling Grand Prix races, his relentless pursuit has finally paid off.
Papaya rules in 2025. Lando Norris crosses the line.
The British McLaren driver has at last been crowned Formula One world champion.
I love you, Mum. I love you, Dad. Thanks for everything. I'm not crying.
It was a spectacular showdown against stiff competition, with four-time world champion Max Verstappen hot on his heels and teammate Oscar Piastri close behind.
I now know what Max feels like a little bit, and I want to congratulate Max and Oscar, my two biggest competitors the whole season. It's been a pleasure to race against both of them.
Surrounded by friends and family in Abu Dhabi, the 26-year-old has become the 35th Formula One world champion.
And just look at the joy. That's what it means to become a world champion.
Lando, amazing! I'm so happy for him. It's been really nervy, but what a way to finish.
Great race, great result. It's our season's work.
Yeah,
and we can relax for off-season and go again next.
I don't even know what to say.
For 2025, Lando Norris slams down the champagne bottle and stands on the podium as world champion.
His true talent and hard work helped to claim his maiden title and also made his fans proud, carrying the Union flag to the very top of Formula One. Shaman Freeman-Powell, Sky News.
Now we've got a new episode of our New Look Hotspot series. So this time our chief correspondent Stuart Ramsey is in the West Bank. He's giving you a behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to report from there. The idea from the whole series is that we've got some of our correspondents showing you the footage that they get from some of these most hostile places in the world, unfiltered on YouTube.
3 minutes you need to go from here. Okay. Unless you want to be arrested, okay?
But why?
Just, this is the order.
You took the guy name and title or what? What is doing? Film it.
Thank you.
Well.
Well, do scan the QR code that was just on your screen, but oh, it is on the screen still, so I forgot.
It's at the bottom. There it is.
Zoom in with your camera to get it. Or just go onto YouTube and type in Hotspots. It's a dedicated Sky News Hotspots YouTube channel. It's the second episode. We talked about it with Alex last week, and fantastic behind-the-scenes footage, that is.
Coming up, we're going to be talking about the Scottish elections. We are getting the SNP's pitch with a speech from the First Minister, John Swinney, and we'll be discussing that with our political correspondent, Amanda Akas.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report. And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
The Scottish National Party leader, John Swinney, will today host his party's first major campaign event in the lead-up to the Scottish election next May. I was going to say we should call him the First Minister.
Yeah, we can, with the First Minister. He will provide a keynote address in Glasgow, where he's expected to set out plans for, in his words, securing Scotland's future. Well, let's talk now to our political correspondent, Amanda Acas, who's in Glasgow. They've had a rough old ride recently, the SNP, haven't they? Are they in a territory where they feel a bit more optimistic about rebuilding?
Well, I certainly think they are. Here we are in the heart of Glasgow, right next to the River Clyde, and John Swinney will be setting out his stall for independence, really, in this speech, which is being seen really as a kind of springboard for his party's campaign for the Holyrood elections next year. That's due to start at 10 o'clock. And certainly, we remember 18 months ago, the last general election, they were really decimated up here in Scotland. And as you say, they had a really bumpy ride with the investigation into the SNP's finances, the resignation of Nicola Sturgeon, of course, all those rows about gender recognition as well. And I think Labour were really hoping that for the first time since devolution, they might have a strong chance to take power in Holyrood. But of course, over that time, the unpopularity of the Labour government in Westminster has really had an impact here in Scotland. And the most recent polls do seem to suggest that the SNP would be on course to hold on to power in Holyrood at those elections in 2026. Now, John Swinney has recently been arguing that if they win a majority, then that would be give them the case for another independence referendum to be held. He argues that last time around in 2014, since then, there's now another 1 million young Scots who weren't eligible to vote then who are eligible to vote now. And it's quite interesting how outspoken he's now being about that. I'm going to read you a few lines from the speech he's due to make shortly. And he says, Westminster control of Scotland's resources doesn't work for us. We see that in their complete failure to support key industries in Scotland. He says he talked to the Prime Minister about this on Friday. And if Sir Keir Starmer doesn't change course, he'll enter our national story as a second Thatcher, a second destroyer of industry and a second destroyer of communities. So pretty strong language against Sir Keir Starmer. Of course, he's also facing a bit of a challenge from Reform UK. We saw Nigel Farage holding a big rally, announcing defector of a Tory peer to his side at the weekend. But certainly it's going to be a very interesting race for power in Holyrood next year.
Amanda, great stuff. Looks chilly there, but beautiful nonetheless with that Glaswegian backdrop. Amanda Acas there for us.
I'm excited about this one. We are going to be, after the break, talking to the duo who created the iconic children's book, We're Going on a Bear Hunt. I'm excited. Now, I don't want to show favouritism on Breakfast Show, but it is probably one of my favourite children's picture books. We're going on a bear hunt, and you'll be very pleased to know that the duo who made the classic book have reunited for a new story.
Pax, A Festive Tale, has been published in the big issue today, telling the story of a family living on the breadline whose cat ventures into the cold after they're unable to afford food for him.
Well, we're now joined by the author, Michael Raisin, and the illustrator, Helen Oxenbury. Absolutely wonderful to see you both here. So you decided to get back together, to kind of get the band back together then, to write this new creation in the big issue. Talk me through the new one.
Well, we had got together again with a book called Oh Dear, Look What I Got. And then off the back of that, we thought we'd have another go with this for the big issue. So it's, as you say, it's a story about a little family that's on the breadline. And Helen did this wonderful picture to go with my words, which is always a delight. Can you see the picture? Can I wave it about?
Yeah, we can wave it about. The picture. What camera? I'm going to try and show you. We've got this is the big issue.
Whilst we're showing it, Helen, tell us about the sort of the story and why it appealed to you to do the graphics.
Well, it's a lovely story. Michael's written a really lovely little story, but it reminds me of when I take my dog a walk, and the last thing at night, I go along the pavements with him and look down into the basements and see all the families and the cooking and the family life that's going on. And I thought, you know, how absolutely awful to look down, to see all that warmth and happiness and just have the pavement to go back to sleep on. I mean, it's just awful to think about. So that's why it appealed to me, above the fact that it was a lovely story.
Can I ask a bit about the process of writing and illustrating at the same time? Because particularly with children's books, it's such a key part of the story, the pictures and creating this world for young readers to immerse themselves into. How does it work? Do you write the words, you look at the words, then you do the pictures, or is it more collaborative? How does the process kind of...
I'm one of those people who think that my job is just to write the words and hand them over.
Yeah.
Some people work in different ways, but I write the words and hand them over. And, I mean, if you're working with Helen, you trust Helen 120%. And it's up to Helen, and she will make the book, which now we've done twice, and then with this story as well. And then the editors and the publishers make the book, but my process is right at the beginning. I just hand over the words. Sometimes I'll get a little message back, don't get this, don't understand that, could you just change that, and so on. But by and large, it's handing over time.
Yeah.
Is that the normal process for you, Helen?
Yes, but you don't hand it over to me. It's via the publisher. And then the publisher will sort of marry the text up with an illustrator that they think is most suitable.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Michael, I wanted to ask you a bit about the big issue itself. Clearly, it's been around for a long time and been very successful at trying to help people get off the streets again. I wonder, maybe you have data on this, maybe you don't, and it's just sort of experience, but whether it's harder for it to be a success today when so few people are buying hard copy anything and relying on getting their news, their information online.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no data on it, as you say, but you would think that it is tricky, and whether people can do a bit of sustained reading. I mean, you know, the print's quite small and the articles are quite long, which is, I mean, it's great. It's a good read, and it always is a good read. But it's, do people read at great length anymore? I mean, I throw it back to you guys. I mean, you know, do you read long stuff or do you read in snippets?
No, I try and read full articles, but your point is right. I mean, I do read online, so it's overwhelmingly, so it's much harder to sort of, in any sort of way, shape and form, to sort of stop on the spot to buy something physical. I think that's less appealing than it once was.
I'm really interested in the decline of reading rates, because I'm a big reader, actually. I love a kind of doorstopper. But I am alarmed, I'll be honest, by the fall in reading rates that we've seen and the demands on our attention from everywhere around. And I was very interested to read your words before on on SATs or on exams, the way that English is taught in schools. Do you worry that, because it does feel that we're doing more kind of, I guess, like quite tough stuff on English language and all this kind of stuff,
yes,
rather than perhaps a kind of more creative teaching of English?
Yes, well, a new regime came in that said that what you had to do was teach children how to write according to certain rules. So they invented an exam, which the nickname for it at one point was SPAG, it's now GPS, which is based on grammar. And it suggested, in fact, they talk about expected levels of writing. That's what they talk about. And the expected levels of writing are not whether it's interesting, whether an audience will like it, what its purpose, but whether it includes things like expanded noun phrases, fronted adverbials, and embedded relative clauses. And if you do that, then you get tick, 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 and then that's an expected level. For those of us who write, trying to influence, trying to amuse, trying to entertain, trying to move people, we find that quite extraordinary, that those are the criteria, if you like, as to what makes a good piece of writing. And teachers, I know, are finding it incredibly restrictive and also distracting. I mean, they want to talk about how does a piece of writing affect somebody else. That's now pushed to one side. You know, are you expanding your noun phrases, Sophie? This is what I'm worried about.
I don't know what that is, I'll be honest.
Well, there you go, you see. Now, if you were a 10-year-old, you'd know. You've got to, get on. Expand, Sophie.
Yeah.
God, I'd failed that exam, hands down.
Dear.
No doubt about it. Helen, I guess your role in attracting young readers is very important, and absolutely fine. If people are drawn by the illustrations to then read as well, fantastic.
Well, I think young children are.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps them along. It's like a sort of stepping stone, really, to reading without an illustration.
Mm-hmm.
But the illustrations do help them.
Hugely, hugely. Do you worry about lack of engagement? Do you think over time children are reading less?
I'm afraid they are, yes. My grandchildren are read to, sort of made to listen, and then they do enjoy it, but all they want to do is to be on their...
This is a thing.
Their thing.
Yeah, we've seen, obviously, with Australia, like the ban coming on social media for under-16s. I don't know if you think that would be a good idea over here.
I'm never much in favour of banning things like that. I think you've got to, you're living in what's called an intermediate world. We're sitting here in a audio-visual medium here, but, books sit amongst it and with it. Basically, you have to fight hard. You have to make books seem fun and interesting and exciting and worth doing. And, teachers and parents know how to do it if they want to do it. The question is, will they be allowed to?
Mm.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really fascinating discussion. Michael, Helen, congrats on another great story together.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We're talking a lot about inspiring and grabbing kids' attention. And I have to say, going on a bear hunt, I mean, it's just such a wonderful novel.
Can't go over it. Can't go under it. You've got to go through it.
After the break, we're going to be speaking to the pianist and composer Chloe Flower. Don't go anywhere for that.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Traveling is not just about the destination. It's also about how you get there. Fly Emirates, fly better. Fly Emirates, fly better. Thank you.
Just a little bit of breaking news to bring you, because we can say that the DJ Tim Westwood has arrived at Southwark Crown Court. This is part of his plea hearing over 4 counts of rape, 2 of sexual assault and 9 of indecent assault. All of these allegations relating to between the years of 1983 and 2016. You can see there the DJ, former DJ I should say, Tim Westwood, arriving at court in Southwark.
Now, the world's first festive record entirely composed by women has been released, spanning 1,000 years of music history and shining a light on pioneering female composers. Let's listen to a taste. We were talking about this the other day, how much I love a bit of festive music.
Yeah, this is right on Will Street.
Right, yeah, exactly right, my street. And I'm delighted to say that joining us now is the pianist and composer Chloe Flower. Chloe, very good morning to you.
Good morning. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us on this. So tell us a little bit about specifically this album and the project and how it's all come together.
Yeah, you know, I think women have been composing for centuries, and this album was really about highlighting this seasonal music because, you know, it's noticeably absent to me when I'm in concert halls. I mean, I would be shocked if even 1% of the music performed in our concert halls during the holidays is music composed by women. I think I've heard like 10,000 versions of Handel's Messiah and Sleigh Ride. And so this album was about highlighting those women who've been overlooked for centuries. That piece was just written in like 1000 AD.
Wow.
Yeah. This is extraordinary. Also, the other thing that I just want to say, this lady has come in with a broken foot.
I have a broken foot here.
How much she cares about trying to, you know, really emphasise the work of these forgotten female composers. So we appreciate your fight. I find it quite incredible that despite the lack of attention, despite the barriers in place, women were still writing music all that time ago. Like, what kind of conditions were they doing it?
I mean, it's amazing, you know. I think it's empowering as a composer to see it. I mean, even in my generation, growing up, I studied classical piano for 20 years in school, and I had never been taught a piece of music that was written by a woman.
Wow.
Yet, you know, these women existed, especially American women who not only suffered from misogyny, but also racism, like growing up in Jim Crow South. And so I think this is kind of the perfect time to talk about rewriting history.
And is this also a perfect moment in the year to push it as well, when I guess classical type of music comes back to the fore a little bit? It gets lost, I guess, at other times in the year, does it? I mean, aside from this album, you try and work on that a lot yourself and try and bring it back into popular culture more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, the holidays does have this very, you know, the soundtrack can be very orchestral in a way. And so I think it is the perfect time. And I think there's so much amazing seasonal music written by women. So I'm excited about it.
It's been so lovely to have you on and to hear some of the music as well. We would talk longer, but we do have to go to Woking in Surrey because Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, is there. He's talking about apprenticeships. He also started off, of course, congratulating McLaren on the big F1 win.
What you've been, I mean, Juliet, you've been painting, I think, 6 o'clock this morning. When you see the quality that's going into those cars of the work that you do, that is every bit as difficult and complicated as doing a degree at university any day of the week. So I'm on a mission to make sure that both are equally valued, not one above the other. And we did have in place in this country for quite a long time a target that 50% of our young people get to university. I've taken that target down and put a new target up, which is 2/3 of our young people to go either to university or to a good apprenticeship. So we really are putting them on an equal footing. And as Pat said, then today on top of that, and to really tilt it more towards apprenticeships, we're announcing 50,000 extra apprenticeships through funding that we're putting in and investment that we're putting in as of today. Because the number of apprenticeships has gone down recently. We want to bring it back up, particularly for young people, because I think it's so valuable and so important. So thank you for allowing us to be here to make this announcement. I want all of you, by the way, if you get time, to go back to your schools or colleges, but schools in particular, if you have the opportunity, just to talk to 14, 15, 16-year-olds about what you do here, because a lot of young people wouldn't necessarily know what it means to work in a place like this. And I bet you, if they heard from you or saw a bit of what you're doing here, they'd want to come here and work, or in similar jobs. So if you could do that. The other thing is, even to be an apprentice these days is a success in its own right, because my boy is 17 and a half, so we're going through the is it university, is it apprenticeship, and I'm beginning to appreciate firsthand just how hard it is to find the right apprenticeship and to get on to be an apprentice. So it's a huge success even to be standing here starting or halfway through or whatever it is through the apprenticeships that you're doing. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you for showing us round. It is so good to be out and about and seeing what's going on here. Incredibly skilled. I feel a real privilege to have spent a bit of time having a look at what you're doing. Thank you so much. And now Pat and I are going to take any questions that you've got for us. So we're going to have just a bit of time for some questions. Anybody got a question? Yes, we'll start here. But anybody can ask a question on anything. So just, if you've got anything you want to ask us, then put your hand up and we'll take your question and get on with it. Over to you.
Hello, my name is Neve. I'm a manufacturing graduate.
Yeah.
And my question is, a lot of people still see apprenticeships as something solely for trades. How does the government plan on changing that perspective?
Not solely for trades. I mean, I think, Pat, I'm right in saying there's 700 different subjects or areas in which you can do an apprenticeship, so a very, very wide range of skills. I think what we're very keen to do is to highlight those skilled ones which are almost the most important for our economy and put special emphasis in there. So I think we can do that, which will help. I think tilting and talking about apprenticeships makes a big difference as well. We have to keep talking about apprenticeships and talking and showing. I think if people see what you do here, they would realise you don't have to spend long on the production line to realise this is highly skilled, highly complicated, very difficult work, every bit as difficult as going to university or sitting and doing a law degree or something like that, which is what I did. But wherever you go, it's the same. I was up in the Clyde where they're building frigates, and some of the electrical skills the apprentices had there were quite incredible, as it will be in any one of these cars that you are working on here. So we've just got to keep talking about that element of it and make sure it's not just seen as limited in any way. Thank you very much. Anybody else got a question? Yeah, sir.
Hi. Hi, I'm Mark. I'm a paint technician apprentice, and my question to you is, why should a young person choose to do an apprenticeship rather than go to university?
So many reasons. Good skill learning from the get-go. a route into a job, because the chances of going for an apprenticeship into a job are much higher than going to university than coming into a job. And of course, going to university these days carries quite a big loan normally with it. So people are coming out of university carrying quite a bit of debt starting their working lives. Whereas if you work through an apprenticeship, obviously, you're earning as you're learning. So I would say it's every bit as good as the two, and I would be equally encouraging of either route for people. But to go straight in, start skilled working, learning, and in a work environment, which is different to university. It's a grown-up, serious environment. If you're in a place like this, you've got to be part of the team, you've got to be professional, you've got to be part of a team in the sense you've got responsibility, you can't not do your bit of the job. And the painting, I mean, you were painting this morning as well?
Not this morning.
Well, Juliet, but just learning, as I did around, that not just that each car is bespoke and therefore each paint, there's no standard in this, but also, as I understand it, the particular way in which the paint has to go on has to be, I mean, it's so skilled in terms of what you're doing. So I would say to people, it's a very, very good thing to do. What made you do it rather than college?
I just wanted to be hands-on.
Yeah. You did go to university, didn't you, for a bit, and you decided
stuff and in apprenticeships, everything's hands-on.
You need to tell that story. Yes. You really do.
Well, we're dropping out a little bit there, so we are going to leave it there. Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, alongside his Work and Pension Secretary, Pat McFadden, in Woking at McLaren. I guess there to kind of congratulate them partly on the great Formula One win they saw, but also because they're really trying to lean into this apprenticeship story as well, and the extra funding that the government has put in there.
I did think his most recent answer was quite interesting, because he quite clearly said you should try apprenticeships over university. It wasn't the traditional selling of this, which is both are great options and whatever works for you. Maybe that was just sort of on the fly how he answered the question, but it was quite an overt apprenticeships over university kind of framing of it.
Lots to talk about in the sport. We're going to move seamlessly from McLaren to McLaren with Jackie.
Disappointing he didn't wear a McLaren-coloured shirt, really. He should have been wearing papaya, not
Well,
grey.
I thought we've changed the colour scheme. It's sort of perfect, isn't it, here? We're matching up with McLaren on our morning's orange.
Yeah,
well,
no, absolutely.
they do call it papaya, don't they?
They call it papaya. Papaya, Team Papaya, papaya rules, you name it, it's papaya.
Is it yellow, papaya?
No, it's orange.
But
it's papaya.
But they didn't used to be that colour, did they?
Let's not talk about the colours. Let's talk about Lando Norris, because I think that's the important thing. He is now the world champion this morning, and it was a very, very tense race yesterday. And you can't even begin to imagine the pressure that a 26-year-old going into this, life-defining sporting moment would be going through. And I'm sure it was horrendous. I'm sure it was absolutely horrendous. And the tears that flowed at the end when he managed to nail third, which is what he needed to win the title, because he was 12 points ahead, was just really heartwarming that it meant so much to everybody else. I mean, everybody was in tears. People watching at home, like me, in tears on the sofa, just watching him in tears. I mean, he didn't take his helmet off for about 20 minutes because he didn't want people to see how much he was crying. There's his parents. It's just a really, really nice
What I loved,
moment.
a statistic you threw up earlier, Jackie, is just how few Formula One world champions there have ever been. This is an unbelievably elite group.
Yeah, 35.
He's-
35 and 11 different now British
Which
world
shows
champions.
Britain's kind of high rating within it, and the fact that 7 of the teams are based in the UK, like Woking for McLaren, where the PM was.
Yeah, extraordinary. And the fact that he's been with them, McLaren, since he was 17, bringing tea to the other drivers, learning his craft, learning about the car, having come up through karting as a very, very fast young driver and learning his craft there. I mean, the fact, it's a dream that he's, overnight success for a lot of people. This is like, who the hell's Lando Norris? And now we know that a lot of people will be saying that this morning. But this is, 2 decades in the making, this success.
And obviously a very kind of heartwarming, as you said, tone off the back of it. Should we just quickly mention the Salah story as well?
What on earth is going to happen? Well, he's probably going to have to leave, isn't he? You give us an incendiary bombshell interview like that when he never gives interviews in the mix zone, which is where all the reporters wait to catch players at the end of the match. He never stops. He did stop. It was very specific. He wanted to convey a message. Today, there will be open training at Liverpool before they go to Milan for their Champions League match. Will he be there? or not.
Jackie, remind us, what did he say?
He said, Liverpool are throwing me under the bus, making me a scapegoat. I used to have a relationship with Arne Slot. Now I don't have a relationship with Arne Slot. Brighton may be my last game. He didn't exactly say that. He said, but I've asked all my family to come and I'll, say bye to the fans before I go to the Africa Cup of Nations for a month. So is he going or is Slot going?
Well, I mean, they've got to change something, but it does seem like it's...
I don't think you can row back from what he said.
No.
I don't. You put it out there, your team's going through a very sketchy patch and you've just piled on even more pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you can row back from that.
Do you know what's great is we've got through the sport 3 times.
Without mentioning Arsenal.
And Sophie hasn't mentioned the Arsenal loss, so that's good.
What happened with Arsenal again? I forgot.
It still hurts. Are you still
I can't remember. You just fill me in. I missed it over the weekend. What was the score?
No, we're out of time.
What was the score?
No, we were out of time.
You won, right?
Up next is Sky News Today. Full coverage of the Prime Minister's speech. That does it for us.